Okay. Okay. So, I'm going to call the public hearing of December 14th, 2023 to order. This meeting is being convened by electronic means. As such, council members may participate in person or by electronic means. For council members participating by electronic means, please ensure your video is turned on and let the clerk know if you leave the meeting for the purposes of confirming quorum. Council members are reminded that in the accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. If council members attending by electronic means lose connection during any portion of the hearing, we will recess the meeting until the connection is restored. If council members lose connection during the voting process, staff will get you back online quickly while we suspend the process. Contact information has been circulated to you. Members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and on YouTube link, which will be posted on X at Vancouver Clerk. We acknowledge that we're on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We thank them for having cared for this land, and we look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue building this great city together. In case of an emergency, and where we need to evacuate the building, I'd like to direct your attention to the exits. There are 2 exits beyond the glass doors and to the left. If these exits are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits in this chamber. Please use the stairs, do not use the elevator, and highlighting that there is a defibrillator located at the end of the hallway outside of the council chamber. I also want to take a moment to recognize the immense contributions of the City of Vancouver staff who work hard every day to help make our city an incredible place to live, work, and play. Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Sim has a leave of absence for the entire day. Councillor Carr has a leave of absence from 1 p.m. to 4:45. Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Dominato. And you have a leave of absence from 5 p.m. onward. Councillor Bly.
Present.
Councillor Boyle.
Present.
Councillor Fry is in the chair as acting mayor. Councillor Montague.
Present.
Councillor Clausen.
Present.
And you also have a leave of absence from 5 p.m. onward. Councillor Meisner.
Present.
And Councillor Jo.
Present.
The hearing has quorum. Acting Mayor Fry.
Thank you, Clerk. Before we begin, I have some announcements. The public may participate by speaking in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to Mayor and Council. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and if they are a resident of Vancouver. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on X at Vancity Clerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so that they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing through our public web form online at Mayor and Council Public Hearing Feedback web form. This link will also be posted on X. Those speaking on behalf of 4 or more persons of groups, including the speaker, will have 8 minutes to speak, and only if those represented are on the line or in person and must not be individual speakers themselves. I think, all right. I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. I remind Council that when addressing speakers and staff, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. A reminder that Council's role at public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means that Council is only to consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers including the applicant or technical advice from staff, but should save debate for after the close of the speakers list. After hearing from speakers, council may either 1, approve the application in principle, 2, refuse the application, or 3, refer the application to staff for further consideration. Finally, if council does not conclude hearing from all speakers this afternoon, we will recess and reconvene the meeting today at 6 p.m. All right, here we go. Item number 1, CD1 rezoning 2231 to 2247 East 41st Avenue. Recognizing our staff at the mic. Oh, did I miss? Oh, apologies. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item, item number 1? Seeing none, clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
It's an application by Diva Developments to rezone 2231 to 2247 East 41st Avenue from residential inclusive district to residential rental to permit the development of a 5-story rental building. A floor space ratio of 2.2 and height of 16.8 meters are proposed. General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since we referred to public hearing. 2 pieces of support, 1 piece in opposition, and that represents all correspondence received up to 12:30 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you, clerk. I see Councillor Montague on the queue. Sorry, is that a?
Yeah. Sorry, thanks, Chair. I'm just looking at the application. It's a fairly common R1 to RR under the SRP, and I see we do have 2 speakers, but wondering if the appetite to waive the presentation.
Yeah, sure. So motion on the floor to waive the presentation, second by Councillor Joe. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, we can waive that application. Oh, sorry, my mistake, sorry. You are opposed. Okay, my apologies. So we will hear that application, please. Thank you. That's right, your mic is not on, but while we're waiting for your mic to be turned on, I'm going to announce this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers to this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There'll be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. We do have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Acting Mayor and Council. My name is Simon Jay, and I'm the rezoning planner for this application, which is being considered under the secured rental policy. The enabling policy is the secured rental policy, or SRP. The SRP encourages new purpose-built rental housing and aligns with the rental housing goals of the Housing Vancouver strategy and the complete neighborhood goals of the Vancouver plan. Updates to the SRP were approved by Council in 2021 to create residential rental zones and a map with eligible areas for the standardized RR zones. Rezonings to standard rental districts have a simplified rezoning process. Instead of creating customized site-specific CD1 zones, the RR district schedules establish clarity on permitted use, height, and density. The RR zones provide more certainty about what building forms may be permitted in low-density areas. The schedules are accompanied by council-approved comprehensive design guidelines. In the simplified process, architectural drawings are not required at rezoning. The specific building designs will be reviewed through a future development permit process when the neighborhood will be notified again for public input and comments. This map from the secured rental policy shows sites that are zoned RS or RT, which are outside of recent community plan areas and are eligible for RR zones. The locations are based on close proximity to public transit and local shopping, as well as being on the first full block of either side of an eligible arterial street. The yellow star indicates the site of this application, located on East 41st Avenue between Gladstone and Nanaimo Streets. Shown in blue are the blocks around the site that are also eligible for rezoning to an RR district. This slide shows the eligible RR zone options for the site. The applicant has chosen to rezone to the RR2B district schedule for this project. The mid-block site, outlined in red, is zoned R11 and developed with 4 single detached houses. The properties contain 4 rental tenancies, and the tenant protection policy applies. The site is surrounded by similar residential properties. Consistent with the intent of the SRP, the site is located near several parks and schools and a shopping area. The site is well served by frequent transit on 41st Avenue, including the R4 rapid bus. The proposed RR2B district schedule allows for a 5-story, 100% rental building with the option for an additional partial story for rooftop amenities. An FSR of up to 2.2 can be considered for this site. The Housing Vancouver strategy seeks to deliver a range of tenures and affordabilities across the housing continuum. Renting, shown in green, has lower monthly costs than home ownership, shown in orange. The process for seeking public input on residential rental rezonings is the same as for CD1 rezonings. An open house was scheduled in November and December of 2022, and 12 pieces of correspondence were received. Concerns were around density. The proposed density is consistent with the enabling secured rental policy, and the proposal will need to comply with the RR2B district schedule. The public benefits accruing from this application include a DCL contribution of over $780,000. The applicant is pursuing a partial waiver of the citywide DCLs. The CAC policy for rezonings exempts routine lower density secured market rental applications such as this one. Additional benefits include the secure rental units secured through a housing agreement. In conclusion, this proposal meets the intent of city policy by delivering a secured rental building. Staff support this application to rezone to RR2B district schedule with the form of development reviewed through the development permit process. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much for that. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application? Seeing nobody in the room or on the line. Are there any questions from council to staff or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? I see Councillor Kirby-Young on the queue. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thank you. And I did pull this one. I know it's a routine application, but I do find it's helpful when we have speakers to hear it, but also because I wanted to ask a question in the context of what's happening with provincial changes. I know we're considering this specific application, but under the SRP, so I'll try to stay in the lines here, it noted that it's well served by transit. When you look at the map, there's a sea of single family around this now. It's a 5-story on a major arterial at 41st off Victoria. And I'm just wondering if staff can comment whether or not this SRP or an application like this would be impacted with the new coming provincial changes, if we have a sense of that.
It's not foreseen that it would be impacted. It's not near a SkyTrain station and it's not near a bus loop.
Because it's not major rapid transit, it's transit service served, but it's not rapid transit.
That's my understanding.
Thank you for the question. The provincial legislation is still relatively new and we are working through the details of it, but it is not within one of the areas that has been identified as a TOA, and then within that 800-meter radius of that station.
Okay, and just in terms of this particular applicant is coming in under the SRP, which is sort of the standard, if you want to come in and go through the simplified process, you get the height relative to the 4-story strata, et cetera, but it doesn't preclude potentially an applicant come in for higher density for a broader rezoning here or at a similar situation or site? I'm just looking to understand kind of like one policy doesn't preclude the other, right? Because we're still talking about a pretty busy area at 41st and Victoria, and we're putting a 5-story rental building on it.
Correct. You can have projects that are within multiple policy areas, so they could be within SRP and another, and they would have the choice. In this instance, the applicant has come forward under the SRP to district schedule.
Okay, so we currently have options for people. So it's the applicant's driving the density, not the city driving the density in this case, I guess is the point I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, I'll maybe ask Simon whether or not there's another enabling policy in this area, and seeing no. So the SRP would be the option available for them to come forward under.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Hung. Seeing nobody else on the queue for questions, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. This phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. We're now going to hear from the public. And we have speakers on the phone to provide comments on this item. So, Clerk, do we have speaker number 1, Chris Huggins, on the phone?
I'm just checking, Acting Mayor. And no, speaker number 1 is not on the line at this time.
Okay. And a reminder to speakers that when you're calling in to let us know if you're a resident of Vancouver and if you support or do not support the application. Speaker number 2, Sardar Naresh Singh Man. We have Sardar on the phone.
And again, speaker number 2 is not currently on the line. I'm not seeing in the chamber.
Okay. At this point, we're going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers or for those speakers to come on the line. And reminder to state your full name and whether you support or oppose to the recommendations and if you're a resident of Vancouver. So we'll take a 5-minute recess for any speakers to come online. Thank you. Sure, councilors, we're going to get back going. If you could put your cameras back on, please. Okay, clerk, do we have any speakers on the line?
Just double checking. No further speakers.
Right. Thanks, clerk. Seeing as there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing that there are little or no comments received after 12 p.m., I'm now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Do staff have any closing comments? Seeing none. Do council have any questions of staff? Seeing none. Council will now make its decision on the application. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councillor Joe. All in favor, or is there any debate? Seeing none. Clerk, if we can move to the voter queue then, please.
Chair, if I could get a vote assist in favor, please. It's Councillor Bly. Sorry, Councillor Meisner. I think you were just coming on there.
That's okay, Councillor Bly. Chair, could I please also have a vote assist in favor? It's Councillor Meisner. Thank you.
And this is Councillor Boyle, and I'll request the same. Thanks.
Oh, or just Councillor Klassen? Right, and that passes with none in opposition. Mayor Sim and Councillor Carr absent. Thank you. All right, moving on to rezoning number 2, the rezoning of 6470 Larch Street. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 2? Seeing none. Okay, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
It's an application by AVRP Architecture to rezone 6470 Larch Street from residential inclusive district to residential rental district to permit the development of a 5-story secure marking rental housing, a floor space ratio of 2.2 and height of 16.8 meter are proposed. General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions as set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since we referred to public hearing: 6 pieces in support, 5 pieces in opposition, and 2 pieces dealing with other aspects. That represents all correspondence received up to 12:30 p.m. today.
Yeah, this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There is an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speaking list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Thanks, staff.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Acting Mayor and Council and members of the public. My name is Lex Dominiak. I'm the rezoning planner for this application, which is being considered under the Secured Rental Policy. The Secured Rental Policy, or SRP, encourages new purpose-built rental housing in Vancouver and aligns with the rental housing goals of the Housing Vancouver Strategy and the Complete Neighborhood Goals of the Vancouver Plan. Updates to the SRP were approved by Council in 2021 to create residential rental zones, also known as RR zones or district schedules. Additionally, Council approved a map which stipulates eligible areas for standardized RR zones. Rezonings to standard rental districts have a simplified rezoning process. Instead of creating customized site-specific CD1 zones, the RR district schedules establish clarity on permitted use, height, and density. The RR zones provide more certainty on what building forms may be permitted in low-density areas. The schedules are accompanied by comprehensive design guidelines, which were also approved by Council. In the simplified process, architectural drawings are not required at rezoning. The specific building design would be reviewed through a future development permit process, at which time the neighborhood would again be notified to provide their input. This map from the secured rental policy shows R11 and RT zone sites, which are outside of recent community plan areas and are eligible for RR rezonings. The locations are based on close proximity to transit and local shopping, as well as being on the first full block on either side of an eligible arterial road. The yellow star indicates the site of this application, located on the northeast corner of Larch and 49th Avenue. Shown in blue are the blocks around the site that are also eligible for rezoning to an RR district. Under the secured rental policy, the site is eligible to be considered for rezoning to an RR2A or RR2B district schedule. The permitted height and density of these eligible district schedules are shown on this slide. As indicated by the red outline, the applicant for the project before you today has chosen to apply for an RR2B district schedule. The proposed site, outlined in red on this map, is currently a vacant lot and zoned R11. It is immediately surrounded by similar R11 zoned residential properties. Consistent with the intent of the SRP, the site is located near several parks and schools, as well as commercial areas and frequent transit routes along 49th Avenue and East and West Boulevards. The site is also in close proximity to the Arbutus Greenway. The proposed RR2B district schedule allows for a 5-story, 100% rental residential building, with the option for an additional partial story of rooftop amenities. A maximum of FSR of 2.2 could be considered. The Housing Vancouver strategy seeks to deliver a range of tenures and affordability across the housing continuum. Renting, shown in green on this table, has lower monthly costs than home ownership, which is shown in orange. The process for seeking public input on residential rental rezonings is the same as for CD1 rezonings. For this application, an open house was held last spring and 50 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was given for increasing rental housing stock and for the proposed development's built form given its proximity to major roads and transit routes. Concerns were expressed related to the potential for the development to add strain to the area's traffic, parking, sewer, and rainwater infrastructure, as well as its impacts on local school capacity. There were also concerns that the proposed height, density, and building form would not fit with the existing low-density character of the area. Additionally, it was suggested that the building would impact the privacy and sunlight access for neighboring properties and contribute to increased noise. In response to concerns, engineering staff have reviewed this application and anticipate no significant impacts to the existing street network. Given the scale of the development, required street improvements, and the site's proximity to frequent transit, furthermore, the proposal will also be required to comply with the parking bylaw. The engineering review also assessed water and sewer capacity, and rezoning conditions have been included to support rainwater management and sewer upgrades. With respect to neighborhood fit, the proposed RR2B zone permits up to 5 stories and is consistent with the secured rental policy. During the development of the policy, staff analyzed the neighborhood suitability of various apartment forms. This analysis is reflected in the regulations contained in the RR2B district schedules and design guidelines, which include regulations to help limit shadowing and privacy impacts for new developments. Any new development would also be required to comply with the city's noise bylaw. The public benefits accruing from this application include the secured rental housing units. There's also a DCL contribution of just over $900,000. The applicant has chosen not to take the DCL waiver. I will note that Section 2 of the referral report incorrectly states that the applicant would be taking the waiver. This is inconsistent with the rest of the report. No community amenity contributions would be required, as the CAC policy for rezonings exempts routine lower density secured rental rezoning applications such as this one. In conclusion, the proposal meets the intent of city policy by delivering a secured rental building. Staff support this application to rezone to the RR2B district schedule, with the form of development reviewed through a future development permit process. Thanks very much. Staff and the applicant team are here to answer any questions.
And thank you for that presentation and for the clarification around the DCL waiver. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application? Hi. Did you want to speak to the application? No? Okay, you certainly don't have to, or you do. Okay.
No.
Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Hilde Havertz, AVRP Architecture, the applicant, and the owner, PISO, and we are here to answer any questions you may have.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. At this point, are there any questions from council to staff or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? And seeing none, no questions. All right. At that point then, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers to this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. And we will now hear from the public. Clerk, do we have any speakers here or on the line?
I'm just checking. There are 2 speakers
All right.
registered.
And we have first on the list is speaker number 1, Kavita Sarwal. Is Kavita Sarwal on the line?
And I'm hearing not on the line. I'm not seeing anybody come forward.
All right. How about speaker number 2, Sardar Naresh Singh Man?
Double checking. Again, not on the line. I'm not seeing anybody come forward. No, both speaker number 1 and speaker number 2 are not on the line.
All right. Well, in that case, this is the final call for speakers. If there are any speakers to this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. Before the close of the speakers list, the phone number has been posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward. In the meantime, we are going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. Back in 5 minutes. Thank you. We have quorum now? Yep. Seeing that we have quorum. Clerk, do we have any other speakers on the line?
Yes, we do. Speaker number 2 is now on the line.
Great. So speaker number 2, Sardar Naresh Singh Man, if you could state your full name and whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver and if you support or oppose the application. Please go ahead for 5 minutes. Sardar? Hello? You're on the
Hi,
line.
can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I oppose I oppose this one. I think first of all, it's not big enough. They should have made it a lot bigger, and I think we have enough social housing in this area. I'd like to see more market area where people can, for affordability, buy in. But I think we're doing too much for social service type sites within Vancouver, and we need to bring young people that are working and can afford it to do, but it shouldn't be low income only. That's my problem with it. Thank you.
And sorry, just for the record, your full name and whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver?
My full name is Naresh Man, and yes, I am a resident of Vancouver.
Great. Thanks, Naresh. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Clerk, any other speakers on the line?
Yes, we have another speaker. I'll have the name of Sherry.
Hi,
Hello.
Sherry. Yep.
Hi.
Please let us.
My name is Sherry. I live right across from the proposed development. The developers redeveloped this property about 12 years ago, and in all the time that I've lived here, that lot has been vacant, and the owners never attempted to build anything. I'm assuming they just hung on to it until they had a maybe more desirable development to propose. I'm wondering why they did that, but also I'm wondering why they would propose a 5-story structure in an area with absolutely nothing close to that height.
Yeah, Sherry. So unfortunately, you're not able to ask questions of the applicant, but also if you could clarify if you're opposed or supportive of this application.
Well, I am opposed.
You are opposed. Okay.
Yes. Now, basically, I'm just questioning the whole concept of something of that magnitude on a normal residential lot that's so far removed from anything close to it.
And the parking.
In an area with absolutely nothing close to that height.
Okay. Yeah, Sherry. Sorry, the feedback from your playback is coming through the microphone.
Okay.
Did you have anything else, or?
Well, no, basically I'm just really questioning that type of a development in the very midst of this residential area. And being at the end of the line of that proposed zoning that was passed in 2021, where that side of Larch Street is the end of the line. Possibly, if they do want to redevelop it in any way, hopefully make it a smaller development that will merge into larger developments to the east. That's all I'm going to ask for.
Okay, thanks, Sherry.
Yes, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Clerk, anybody else on the line?
I was just excuse me, I was just checking, Acting Mayor, and the answer is no further speakers. I like to go slowly just in case somebody jumps on.
Sure. No problem.
No, there are none.
All right. Thanks, Clerk. Okay. Seeing as there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing as there is little or no comments received after 12 p.m., I'm also now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Seeing none. Do staff have any closing comments? Seeing none. Does council have any questions for staff? I do see Councillor Meisner on the queue.
Yeah, thanks very much. I just want to clarify something that one of the speakers mentioned. They mentioned that this was a social housing building, but can you confirm that this is a secured market rental building, 100% secured market rental?
Thanks. That's a question for staff.
Correct.
Thanks for the question. Yes, the proposed application is under the RR2B district schedule, which would require 100% market rental housing.
Okay, there's no below market component in this building, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks very much for clarifying that.
Anything else, Councillor Meisner?
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions from council, it's now time to make a decision on this application. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Joe. Is there any debate? Right, seeing none and nobody on the queue. Clerk, if we can move to a voting queue and vote on this application. All right, not seeing Councillor Kirby Young in the room, so that passes with none in opposition. Councillor Carr, Councillor Kirby Young, and Mayor Sim absent. All right, thanks everybody. We will now be moving on to rezoning number 3, CD1 rezoning 4330 to 4408 Arbutus Street and 2092 Nanton Avenue. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 3? Seeing none, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
There's an application by Micron Developments to rezone 4330 to 4408 Arbutus Street and 2092 Nathan Avenue, Residential Inclusive District to Comprehensive Development District, to permit the development of a 6-story, 162-unit community care facility, a floor space ratio of 3.87 and a height of 27.5 meter, with additional height for a rooftop amenity are proposed. General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation with the addition of 1 yellow memo dated December 8th, 2023. The following correspondence has been received since referred to public hearing: 12 pieces in support, 1 piece in opposition, and that represents all correspondence received up to 12:30 p.m. today.
Great, thanks, clerk. Okay, this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number is posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. We do have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Great. Confirming that you can see my screen.
We can see your screen.
There we go. Great. Thanks. Good afternoon, Council. As mentioned, I'm Nick Danford, the rezoning planner, managing this rezoning file for a community care facility in the Arbutus Ridge neighborhood. Before I get going, I'd like to quickly bring Council's attention to the yellow memo that was received prior to the hearing today. The memo outlines that as a result of Council's repeal of 72 approved policies that included the community visions on November 1st, and the adoption of the new interim rezoning policy for social housing, seniors housing, and institutional, cultural, and recreational uses in the former community vision areas, known as IRP for short. Any references in the report to the Arbutus Ridge, Carrisdale, and Shaughnessy community vision, or ARCS vision, should be replaced with the new IRP. The IRP does have the same development eligibility and potential for seniors housing and institutional uses as was contained in the former ARCS vision. And there's no changes to the rezoning application as a result. No action is required from council on this. So the site is located on the southeast corner of the intersection of Arbutus Street and Nanton Avenue in the Arbutus Ridge neighborhood. The site's comprised of 6 lots stretching south along Arbutus Street and is currently developed with 6 single detached houses. Across Nanton Avenue to the north is the Arbutus Club, and the Greenway is a block to the east. Kitty corner to the site is a relatively new 7- and 8-story multifamily residential development with commercial at the ground level. Across Arbutus to the west is a 2-story townhouse development, and a bit further down the block to the south is a 2-story long-term care facility. The site's close by a number of parks, including Arbutus Village, Prince of Wales, and Cucina Parks, all within 400 meters. Community and cultural spaces are nearby, including the St. George Greek Orthodox Church just to the south, along with a future neighborhood house and adult daycare that's expected as part of the Arbutus Mall development, kitty corner to the site. So the proposal received in August 2022 seeks to rezone the underlying R11 zone to allow for community care facility use, which the applicant has indicated they intend to serve a seniors population. The proposal is for just over 150,000 square feet of floor area within a 6-story building, with a total height of 27.5 meters to the top of the 6th floor, and 31.5 meters to, or 103 feet to the top of the rooftop amenity. This results in an FSR of 3.87, and 162 care units are proposed for the building over a single story of underground parking that would be accessed from the rear lane. So this application is being considered under the recently adopted interim rezoning policy for social housing, seniors housing, and institutional, cultural, and recreational uses, replacing the original enabling ARC's community vision. The policy contained in the new IRP is consistent with the original vision's policy that allow for consideration of rezonings for institutional uses. The proposal is for a community care facility, which is an institutional use as defined in the zoning and development bylaw, the use of a premises operated by a licensee under the Community Care and Assisted Living Act of BC. A virtual Q&A session or open house was held in January 2023. 49 pieces of correspondence were received through the application review process. Those comments received in support felt that the site was appropriate given the use proposed, as well as that there was a great need for seniors, the intended population of the facility. Concerns raised by some folks through the review included the anticipated affordability of the facility, as well as the building's design. So given the institutional use proposed, the application is subject to a fixed rate CAC, institutional rate CAC. That value, combined with the expected DCLs and public art contribution of the project, the total public benefits value is just under $5.5 million. So staff do support the proposed community care facility building at this location under the enabling IRP, subject to conditions outlined in Appendix B. The approval of this application would deliver 162 community care units, and staff and the applicant are available for any questions. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application? Sure.
Good afternoon. We don't have a presentation, but are happy to answer any questions.
Oh, fantastic, thank you. All right, well, at this point, are there any questions from council to staff or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? And I'm seeing Councillor Montague first on the queue.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Actually, just a bit of a curiosity. I'm not super familiar with the different classes for community care facilities, and I'm just wondering if we could expand a little bit on the Class B, exactly what kind of resident will be, is it a wide range or is it fairly focused?
Yeah, thanks for the questions. There's Class A and Class B defined in the zoning development bylaw. The main difference is around the amount of folks being served. So I believe Class A is under, I'd have to look, but I think it's under 6 or 8 people being served in that facility, whereas Class B is more than that.
Okay, so the classes are just the amount of
individuals
living there?
Yeah, folks.
Maybe the applicant can maybe just respond to what sort of clients will be living in this facility?
Happy to, Councillor. My name is Alison Keller, and I'm with Amica Senior Lifestyles. So the residents that we serve and support, they can move in and they can have a variety of needs already, including physical and or cognitive. And the whole idea of the continuum of care, the Class B facility that we are proposing before you, we can support whatever the needs are. And you can also have a couple move in together with varying needs. They won't have to move. And with the licensing that we would be submitting for, we could provide palliative support right through to end of life.
Appreciate that answer. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Montague. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Montague asked one of my questions around demographics and who will be served. I'm curious if the applicant just could expand a little bit around public engagement around this particular application, because there is obviously a need for seniors housing, but I'd also heard from neighbors there were maybe some considerations that they had. So I'm just curious if you could speak to that process around the neighborhood engagement.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. It moves.
It's driving. This project has undertaken through a rezoning process. We had significant public engagement, both through the city standard process, as well as engagement with community groups in the local area, as well as follow-ups with people who voiced interest or concern in the application. And thus far, we feel like we've connected with many of the residents that we're aware of who had an interest in greater information or concern related to the project.
And could you just expand on what you heard overall, in terms of the benefits or drawbacks, and just at a high level?
Absolutely. I would say the commentary is very much consistent with what Nick Danford outlined in his presentation. Certainly an interest in the need in the community for seniors housing. Having not been no new seniors housing in the community for quite some time. People expressed interest in understanding the form of development, the scale of the development, of course, and its relative scale relative to the area around. And people were also interested in the range of care per the earlier question of what is being provided inside of the building as well. And we were able to clarify that for people through the process.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all my questions, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Dominato. And as I expected, Councillor Klassen.
Good questions for my team members. I don't have a lot to add. I'm broadly very supportive of this investment into supportive housing for elders in our city. But I just wanted to also note the fact that just within about a city block or so, there is another long-term care home that is probably at end of life right now. So having this kind of housing is great. But I just wanted to just ask Amica, who've been doing a lot of work and bringing a lot of proposals to us right now, just generally why they sort of see this as a good opportunity for potential residents in our city right now.
Thank you very much, Councillor Klassen. I appreciate the question. In our research, I would describe it that we are in the foothills of crisis in Vancouver, but right across this country. And I can share with you that on the west side, currently you have about 7,800 residents who are of the age 75 and up. In about 3 years, you're going to be faced with an increase of 25%. You're going to be faced with about 10,000 people in the west side who are 75 and up. Why is this a problem? You have 1,205 private pay senior living suites. 380 of those provide the fully licensed care. And of that, 54 are dedicated secure memory care. So yes, Amica is coming to you We have been aware of the situation. We have been working with other municipalities to identify the right sites where, they're more challenging because they are within communities. We would never warehouse seniors. We are committed to help people age in place. And right now, you have a very high population aging in your west side. So that's why we've brought this one forward.
Clerk, can we have her podium go down?
Yes, thanks.
It's too high.
Is it this one? Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I also noticed it's a note that it's right across the street from the Arbutus shopping and things like that, which is a total winner.
It absolutely is. And we look for sites that have that walkability as well too. It's sometimes you hear retirement residences sort of disparagingly called as cruise ships and the like. It's not that. It is absolutely safety and security is of paramount importance. But what we are committed to do as well is to bring residences into communities where people can still maintain those social connections so they can still go to their favorite grocery stores, they can go to their bankers, they can go to their doctors, they can go to their financial advisors, they could, maybe go to their favorite book club still. It is about helping people stay within their own neighborhood.
And engagement with the family members and visits and friends.
And their friends, exactly. And, and we design our residences as well to allow for that socializing. It is critical in well-being. And we invite the community into our residences as well too.
That's great. Thanks very much. Appreciate what Amica has been doing in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Klassen. Seeing no other questions from councillors, I'm going to make the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chambers, please come to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. So we're now going to hear from the public. And looking at the list here, Clerk, do you have any of the speakers online or in person?
Yes, Acting Mayor Fry, speaker number 1 has withdrawn, but speaker number 2, Chris Huggins, is on the line.
Afternoon.
Fantastic.
Can
And,
you hear
and
me?
Chris will ask for your full name and whether you're a resident of Vancouver and if you support or oppose the project.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Acting Mayor, members of Council. I do support this proposal. My name is Chris Huggins, and I'm the General Manager of Amica West Vancouver, but I do reside in Vancouver, and I've lived and worked in the Kerrisdale-Kitsilano neighborhood pretty much the majority of my life. I do have the privilege of serving seniors and their families daily, and so I understand firsthand the many benefits a private pay residence can provide, especially a state-of-the-art residence that provides the full continuum of care like the one that is proposed by Amica and Marcon for 4330 to 440 Arbutus Street and 2092 Nanton Avenue. I come before you today as a native resident of the West Side, having lived and worked here, like I said, for many years. I was fortunate to begin my career with Amica in 2008 at nearby Amica Arbutus Manor in Vancouver, and have held various leadership roles in life enrichment and administration throughout my 15-year career. Growth opportunities with Amica did bring me to Toronto for several years. However, my West Coast roots soon called me back home. I have a strong connection to this community as my parents and my family still reside on the West Side. Maintaining the connection to Vancouver's West Side is near and dear to my family and myself, and I understand its social and emotional relevance. Peace of mind is everything when it comes to planning, and I know my parents are eager to understand what options will be available to them when the time does come. Whatever this option may be, I know they will want to remain in the same neighborhood where their hearts and memories are deeply rooted and where their key community relationships remain. More important to this conversation than my perspective, however, is the perspective of older Canadians who are contemplating their changing needs and their living conditions. Canadians do want to age in place. Academically, a study published in 2021 in the Canadian Geriatric Journal indicated that 90% of individuals over the age of 65 prefer to age in place. Research does show that aging in place evokes feelings of security and familiarity, as well as attachment and social connectedness, much like Allison commented earlier. Moreover, social connectedness protects against age-related declines in health. In our direct experience, over 80% of Amica residents either come from their local neighborhood surrounding the residence or they move closer to their families nearby. So, we know Canadians want to age in place. The challenge that we're dealing with today is that there is not enough retirement residents with fully licensed long-term care to accommodate them. The lack of this specialized housing is found on the west side. By 2027, the population here of people aged 75 and over, again, like Allison mentioned, will jump by 25% to about 10,000. Unfortunately, there are only 300 private pay licensed care suites in this area to date, and only 54 of those are dedicated specifically to memory care. This is greatly concerning as the rates of dementia predicted for British Columbia will be tripled over the next 20 years. So when a West Side senior or their family decides to move to a residence that is licensed to provide long-term care, including memory care, the lack of this type of housing adds unnecessary turmoil to an already stressful situation. When this occurs, families on the West Side are often forced to look for housing outside of their own neighborhoods. This in turn breaks the social connections that are so valuable in preserving older people's health, as we've already discussed. Acting Mayor and Council, if you approve Amica's proposal for a new residence at 2092 Nanton Avenue that offers licensed care across the full spectrum of need, you could change hundreds of families' lives for the better. A new Amica will provide housing for more seniors who want to stay in the neighborhood that they love. It will help them to age safely and gracefully in place no matter what physical or cognitive challenges arise, and it will also help elderly couples with different health needs stay together. Moreover, it will nurture age-friendly connections that promote overall community well-being. We know age-friendly communities strengthen the quality of life for all of our residents, led by seniors who are the anchors and stewards of their neighborhoods. I ask you, therefore, to please approve this crucially needed development proposal and help improve and protect the lives of seniors and their families. Many thanks for your time.
And thank you, Chris. Very well timed, and appreciate your insights. Seeing no questions, thanks very much for joining us. Next, hopefully on the line is speaker number 3, Terry Lake, CEO of the British Columbia Care Providers Association.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Acting Mayor Fry and Council. My name is Terry Lake, and I'm speaking in support of this application. I'm not personally a resident of Vancouver, but I am, as you mentioned, the CEO of the BC Care Providers Association, representing contracted and private providers of long-term care and assisted living, including those in the city of Vancouver. I'm also a former councillor and mayor of the city of Kamloops, but I think this is the first time I've been on this side of a public hearing. And I also served as health minister in BC from 2013 to 2017 and was responsible for seniors care and services. As has been mentioned on a local level, but at a wider level, Canada is in fact an aging population, and British Columbia is aging faster than other parts of our country. Within a few years, 25% of our population will be over 65, and the group over 80 is, in fact, the fastest growing cohort in our province. A recent report by Don Drummond of the C.D. Howe Institute points out that the lack of preparation for this demographic challenge has resulted in significant stress on our health and social care systems. So all levels of government, be it federal, provincial, or local, need to be focused on these challenges if we are to be successful. And the need for dedicated retirement living, assisted living, and long-term care has never been greater. In the province today, we currently have about 30,000 long-term care spaces, of which about 3,000 are privately paid spaces. And we require 10,000 more long-term care spaces in the next 5 to 7 years. And while the provincial government has announced plans to build 1,200 new health authority-owned spaces in that time frame, it leaves a very large gap that can only be filled by contracted and private providers. Currently, private pay long-term care serves a dual purpose. It provides care outside the public system, which relieves pressure on that system, which allows others in the public system a greater opportunity to access that care. And when hospitals are overflowing with older British Columbians that require long-term care and there are no public spaces available, these beds often provide surge capacity and are contracted by health authorities, which relieves pressure on the acute care system. And a lot of people don't understand that assisted living, long-term care, home health are integral parts of our healthcare system, and without them functioning optimally, then the other parts of our system, hospitals, and in fact, all parts of the system will not function at the highest level possible. Over the winter, this is particularly a problem as we see many, what we call alternate level of care patients waiting in hospital for an appropriate long-term care space. And it is this surge capacity of the private system that really helps save the entire healthcare system. Many longtime residents of urban neighborhoods like this one want to age in their communities, as we've heard, and the equity that is accumulated in their large or in their family homes, not necessarily large, allows them to access private care close to their family, friends, and familiar amenities. I have personal friends whose parents grew up in this neighborhood, were able to sell their home that was bought in the 60s and able to access care and stay in that neighborhood, which allows them to maintain those social and other connections which are so important. So local governments have many reasons to look favorably on applications for seniors housing of all types. This demand for more housing that we see that's so acute in our province can be met by densification. And in this case, 6 single-family home lots that house approximately 30 people will be replaced by 162 homes. And many of the new residents of this proposed care home will market their former homes, freeing up the opportunity to densify on those lots. Also, climate action goals can be addressed as those living in congregate living footprints, like retirement living or long-term care, will have a much smaller carbon footprint than those living in a 2,500 square foot house. So in summary, facilitating the development of congregate seniors living is just good public policy. That's also complementary to other age-friendly initiatives such as accessible sidewalks, accessible and close pedestrian crossings, accessible transportation, and encouraging naturally occurring retirement communities. It's been very heartening to see the City of Vancouver's very progressive approach with the announcement of a seniors lead to provide policy advice. Hopefully more BC communities will follow their lead. So in summary, this project helps meet many social challenges in healthcare, housing, and climate action. And certainly, we think this is a very good project to go forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Terry. And if you could stay on the line, you do have questions from Councillor Klassen. And might I add, that was perfectly timed at 5 minutes. So good job.
As a pro.
Thank you.
Hey, Terry. Hi, Terry. Just a couple of quick questions. I think you covered a lot of ground with your remarks. I just want to talk to you about memory care. First of all, I just want to note that you were in quoted in a recent article called BC Communities Not Ready for an Aging Population, which I think the title speaks for itself. But just with regards to the memory care space, I realize it is a much smaller area, but it is going to be included here. But how some of these private memory care providers are starting to kind of address an important need out in the community. What are you seeing in that area?
Well, thank you, Councillor Klassen. And you know from your prior experience that about 60% of the residents of long-term care have cognitive deficits. Many also have physical challenges, complex diseases as well. But there are many older seniors that do just have cognitive challenges related to Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia without a lot of physical challenges. And so it's these folks particularly that memory care serves. So you can create an environment that is addresses their needs in terms of making a familiar space, but keeping them safe from wandering and finding themselves outside in the public in a very dangerous environment for them. And lots of the principles around dementia care can be incorporated into memory care spaces, which makes the quality of life very good for these folks who can live quite a long time. So I think focusing on memory care is part of the continuum of care that's very much needed as we see the prevalence of dementia increase in our society.
Thanks a lot, Terry, for your comment.
Great. Thank you, Terry. No further questions. Moving on, speaker number 4, Narishman on the line.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for taking my call. I'm a Vancouver resident, and I strongly oppose this motion. And first of all, I'd like to thank Chris and Terry Lake. They did some really good advertising and touting for Amica, which is a big corporation that's got a multi-billion-dollar fund, and they come up with a building that looks so ugly like this. Like, how can you guys as councillors accept this? At least they could beautify the building a little bit better and then maybe kick it down the road until they do that. Like Councillor Verdi and Mayor Sim have done a great job getting rid of the Parks Board, and he's done a wonderful job on a lot of other issues. And we elected you guys to make sure that there's affordability.
Excuse me, Naresh, I'm just going to keep you on track. This is strictly on this one application. I appreciate what you're saying.
Well, that's what I'm talking. Hold on here, sir. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You didn't interrupt anybody else. Like, why do I get interrupted? I didn't do anything wrong. There's 2 views on this, right?
Yeah. No. Please
okay.
Continue.
So can you continue? Thank you. So what I'm trying to say is, like, let's make it a better looking building. I refuse to accept this monstrosity without further improvement. You guys should. You're elected here. You've got the trust in the people. Make a building look better. This is the same design that they've been doing in every community. Just because the people are going in there are old, the building doesn't have to look decrepit. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Clerk, do we have any other speakers on the line?
Thank you, Chair Fry. We do have a speaker, but it's an unknown speaker. We could check with them if they're calling in for this item with the recess, or we could unmute them.
Let's roll the dice and unmute them and ask them to introduce themselves, say if they're calling from Vancouver and whether they support or oppose the application for Arbutus and Nanton Amica. Speaker?
Am I on?
You are.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was wondering if I was in the list or not. Good. My name is Jack Barr. I was born and raised Vancouverite. I've lived here for 59 years. Went to Shaughnessy Elementary, Prince of Wales High School, and I've been a member of the Arbutus Club, so I've literally lived and worked within a 2-kilometer radius of this proposed development, and have intimately seen every change, good and bad, along the Arbutus corridor over the years. I am speaking in favor of this project. I'm the owner of Western Mortgage Realty and Western Mortgage Development Corp., which has been a long-time family real estate development and held my real estate license for 40 years. I'll further qualify my statements by adding that one of my volunteer projects was the Vancouver Masonic Center at 8th and Granville, where we put in an 18-story purpose-built rental building with 150 units, of which 50 are market and 50 are affordable. In 2016, when we got our rezoning, we obtained the highest density at that point, which was 6.1. And now we look at what's going on with SkyTrain. I use this context as I see what can happen in a very short period of time when the demand for certain types of housing are apparent, and when we know that there's going to be an estimated 1 million more people or so in Vancouver in 10 years, coupled with the aging population specifically on the west side of Vancouver. I see and agree with the direction of the Arbutus corridor and the density we observe occurring along the arterial routes, similar to Cambly and to a lesser extent Oak Street and Granville as we get down to Marpole. I believe this area the proposed area is ideally located close to parks, shopping amenities, it's easy access to transit, and already has a long history with this type of use, as Arbutus Manor, Arbutus Long-Term Care has been there, as well as even Tapestry, which is just around a kilometer away. It will, however, be very nice to see some brand new inventory in the neighborhood. Although my parents are no longer with me, my in-laws are very close to becoming prime candidates for an Amica Seniors lifestyle project such as this, living in the area, and I know there are thousands close by in the same scenario. In addition, my wife and I, somewhere down the road when the occasion arises, would love to be able to have a facility that meets our needs in the neighborhood that we've grown up and raised our family in. The Amica project is really, in my opinion, a much-needed facility in this area as the older West Side population starts to require this type of care. One where they can move in on their own or with their significant other if they should so desire, and as their health needs change, their accommodations can be adapted to conform. For this demographic to be able to sell their single-family residences and be able to remain in the same community is an enormous benefit, in my opinion. I appreciate and applaud the thoughtful design, the scale, and the form of the building, knowing what has happened along Arbutus Mall area, what has happened years ago in Quilchena, and what could potentially happen in Quilchena Gardens. We know, there's a lot that's going to change, and it's an integral piece of this evolving 2-kilometer stretch of Arbutus Street from West 12th to West 33rd. I've seen a lot of the changes in the Arbutus area start with the Arbutus Ridge development, and I miss doing the midnight showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. On a bit of a tangent, I will say that I think the council previously at that point in time did the city a disservice when they got rid of the Ridge bowling lanes. In a community such as this that is damp during October through March, and you've got an active and wholesome activity such as bowling, it's a shame that it wasn't relocated either in Kitts or Kerrisdale, because I know there wasn't a child that grew up in the area that didn't go to a birthday party with the glow in the dark or the amount of seniors leagues that went on in that area. But I digress. I'll close off just saying I hope council looks favorably on this proposal, and I look forward to seeing it be done. And thank you.
And thank you for your comments. And sorry, just one more time, just for the benefit of the clerks. Your name was?
Yep, Jack Barr.
Okay, thank you.
By all means.
Clerks, do we have anybody else on the line?
None at the moment.
All right, thank you. At this point, we'll make our final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. Before the close of the speakers list. Oh, I see somebody approaching the podium. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Alma Lee. This is a weird thing. And I am here as a volunteer board member from the South Granville Senior Centre. Vancouver has been my home since 1984. I moved here from Toronto and originally from Scotland. And so I'm proud to live here, and I'm equally proud to have created a legacy here by being the founder of the Vancouver International Writers Festival. Thank you. At the South Granville Senior Centre, our mission is to work with seniors to support their health and independence through programs and services that recognize diversity and individuality, as well as offering opportunities for friendship and well-being. And I can attest to the fact that I have made friends there. We have a series of programs including arts, continuing studies, culinary, fitness and healthcare, and we welcome visitors and would be happy to see any of you anytime. Our healthcare system is in a crisis, as you know, especially as it relates to seniors. This proposal for 160 new seniors' full care beds will help to serve those in the immediate neighbourhood, which is home to many aging Vancouverites, and will also help to alleviate the pressures on our system, which is experienced with an all-time high demand on seniors' care and living situations. The Amica model of allowing seniors to age with dignity, and care and the care they require is a blessing for our communities. In fact, I have a very good friend who's living in an Amica residence in Victoria right now, and she reports to me that the care is first class. So I'm pleased and relieved to given my own age, to see this proposal come forward, and I urge Council to support proceeding to construction. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak and to address you today, and I hope I will take time to come and visit us at the Granville Island Senior Centre. In fact, Councillor Boyle was there last week, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to help to welcome her. Thank you very much.
Alma, thank you for your comments, and thank you for your many contributions to the betterment of life in our city that you didn't list off because you're very modest, but thank you for all of that. You do have a question from Councillor Klassen.
Alma, first of all, I want to thank you for your incredible service as establishing the Writers' Festival. We met during your tenure there at one point. You don't have to remember, I was just some guy probably interacting with you. And I realized that you also, I think, had some connection with Performing Arts Lodge, which I was a board member for many years as well, through your own sort of connections to our arts community. I just wanted to see if it would be possible for us to get some information from you about following up. I'd love to be able to come out to your senior center, and
I can certainly
and have
do
a chance
that.
to come and meet and see some of the great work that you guys are doing there.
I understand, in fact, that there's a procedure happening at the moment to try and get a town hall happening at the centre with some of the councillors and the mayor. So
I might just come over and get that information from you in a moment. So thank you again for coming in today.
Thanks, Alma, and thanks, Councillor Klassen. Okay, so
thank you.
We're now, this is I did make the third call for speakers, and as mentioned before, the phone number is posted on X and made available on the live stream. And any additional speakers that are in the chambers could, of course, come forward to the podium, but we are going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thanks. the line to turn on their cameras, please. Perfecto. All right. Clerk, do we have any other speakers on the line?
No.
All right. Seeing as there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing as there are little or no comments received after 12 p.m., I'm also now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Nope. Do staff have any closing comments?
And counsel of the yellow memo that was introduced at the beginning of the change in the enabling policy from the community vision to the new IRP.
Fantastic, thank you. All right. Do council have any questions of staff? And I see Councillor Kirby-Young on the queue. Councillor Kirby-Young.
No, I don't have any questions of staff, but I'm happy to move the recommendations of the yellow memo.
Thank you. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councillor Dominato. And that is moving item 3 with the yellow memo dated December 8th, 2023 for the rezoning of 4330 to 4408 Arbutus Street and 2092 Nanton Avenue. Update to policy context. All right.
And Chair, if I can.
Sure.
Speak vociferously in support. I think that we're going to continue. The stats are I would say, arresting is perhaps a good word in terms of the gap that we're going to need to fill. And so I do think that the takeaway here is the onus on the City of Vancouver to be able to expedite these types of projects because the need is significant. And when people need this type of care, they need it. And usually far more quickly than the development cycles allow in terms of developing buildings. And so if we can have enabling policy that really seeks to streamline this, it's a good thing. And I also really like to see, in the spirit of our complete communities, these types of projects integrating in neighborhoods across the city. And we do hear that from a lot of folks that people are really looking for that sense of connection to neighborhood, and the ability to age in place is a compelling one. So I will keep it brief today because I know that council's had a long week, but I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. Also briefly, I just want to extend my support and excitement about this project. Like one of the speakers, I went to countless birthday parties at the Ridge Bowling. Many of my loved ones have aged in that neighborhood too, and absolutely see the need in every part of the city for more housing just like this. So I'm grateful to see it come forward.
Thanks, Councillor Boyle. And just adding my own note of appreciation also for Allison and Alma, who showed up and presented quite well. And I think there's a real imperative to deliver more projects like this. And so appreciate the opportunity to vote on this today. Clerks, if we can move to a voting queue, please. And Councillor Kirby-Young. Right, and that passes with none in opposition, Councillors Carr and Mayor Sim absent. Thanks, everybody. All right. Moving on to item number 4, CD1 rezoning for 848 Seymour Street. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item number 4? Okay, seeing none, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Parkinson Will to rezone 848 Seymour Street from downtown district to comprehensive development district to permit the development of a 30-story hotel. A floor space ratio of 17.67 and a height of 97.7 meter proposed. General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set on the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referred to public hearing. 2 pieces in support, 3 pieces in opposition. And that represents all correspondence received up to 12:30 p.m. today.
Great, thank you, Clerk. I'm going to take this opportunity to make a first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. Before the close of the speakers list. The phone number has been posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added at the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Good afternoon again, Council. Nick Danford, rezoning planner for this application as well, for a hotel in downtown. So the site is located on the east side of Seymour Street. It's a mid-block site between Robson and Smythe Streets in the city's downtown core. The site's currently a surface parking lot, and the subject block is developed with 3 strata residential buildings, ranging from a 12-story building that's directly north of the subject property at Robson and Seymour, and there's a couple of 20-plus story residential buildings to the south and southeast along Smythe Street. Directly to the east of the site, across the lane, is another surface parking lot on Richards. As mentioned, the site's very centrally located, just 1 block east of the Granville Street Entertainment District and within blocks of the Stadium District. The site is well served by transit, just 2 blocks away from the city center Canada Line station. The proposal is being considered under the enabling rezoning policy for the Central Business District, or CBD, and CBD Shoulder, as well as the Metro Core Jobs and Economy Land Use Plan. Both of these policies do allow for consideration of non-residential uses within the downtown and support the development of hotels within this area. The site is also within the Granville Street planning process area currently underway. So the proposal that was received in June 2022 seeks to rezone from the underlying downtown district zone to allow for a 30-story hotel building. The proposal includes 393 hotel rooms within just over 238,000 square feet of floor area. This results in an FSR of 17.67. The proposed height is 97.7 meters, or 321 feet, and vehicular access as well as passenger drop-off would be accessed from the rear lane. A Q&A session was held in late November 2022. Through the application process, 59 pieces of correspondence were received. Folks who generally supported the proposal appreciated the need for the hotel rooms in the city, as well as the proposed height and density given the location. Some folks did express concern for the proposal, citing privacy issues with some of the neighboring residential buildings, as well as concerns about the increase in traffic as a result of the additional use. So given the proposed commercial use, the application is subject to a fixed rate commercial CAC. So that value combined with the expected DCLs and public art contribution for the project, the total public benefits valued for the application is just over $9.8 million. Staff support the proposal for a 30-story hotel at this location under the enabling CBD rezoning policy and Metro Core Jobs and Economy Land Use Plan, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B. The approval of this application would deliver 393 new hotel units to the downtown, and staff and the applicant are available if there's any questions. Thank you.
And thank you. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application? Okay. Please.
Hi, my name's Damon Chan from Forum Development. We are the development manager on the project on behalf of the owner, Paul White Construction. And I just wanted to speak to the economic benefits of the hotel. I'll let Nick answer the questions about the details of the project. But we're proposing 393 room hotel on Seymour, walking distance to Robson Street, walking distance to the Granville Street Entertainment District, walking distance to Rogers Arena, BC Place, the new art museum, and also the downtown core. So it's a centrally located hotel, and we think is going to be a great benefit to downtown Vancouver. As many of you know, there is a hotel shortage in Vancouver. Destination Vancouver has written a report on that. And as a result, there's forecasted to be foregone economic benefits to Vancouver by not having enough hotel rooms. Some of the specific benefits that we see from this hotel, according to Destination Vancouver, is a 393-room hotel will generate 1,800 direct and indirect jobs and full-time jobs in Vancouver. It'll also generate $118 million in gross domestic product, an increase in gross domestic product in Vancouver. $213 million in goods and services, potentially. $28 million in GST and PST, extra taxes. And just property tax alone, we think it'll go up from $200,000 today to almost $2 million after the hotel is built. So we're excited about the hotel. We hope the City of Vancouver and Council is excited about the hotel too. And thank you for hearing our application.
Thanks, Damon. Okay, I do see we have councillors on the queue for questions, and reminding council, this is the only opportunity to ask questions of the applicant, but you can also ask staff. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thank you. I have questions for the applicant specifically. And I'm very familiar with the dire shortage of hotel rooms. And I'm also wondering, there was reference here that's part of the Granville Street planning process and the direction that council gave on that we can currently consider hotel uses, recognizing the shortage in the city and the importance. I'm interested to hear about your experience as to whether or not that provided a path for you to come forward, or you felt you would have been able to do it otherwise, and what was that process like for you?
Well, I think some time ago also the city implemented interim hotel rezoning policy, which gave us a path to rezoning this site. I think the community plan also allowed for this site. But I mean, we appreciate the City of Vancouver's support for hotels, and we think there's good reason for it, and there's significant economic benefits to. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not as familiar in terms of, but maybe I can delve a little bit into the vision for this one, because I know it says of the 393 hotel rooms, 120 something, the 132 of them are going to be long stay rooms. So can you describe the short-term stay is going to be the traditional hotel, and who the long-term stay rooms are going to serve?
Yeah, a long-term stay has a portion of rooms that have kitchenettes in them and kitchens. So they're for people who might be coming to town that are staying for a longer period of time. For example, they have business here for a week and would prefer to be in a room that has a kitchen where they can cook their own food and be a little bit more in control of their own lifestyle. And the other rooms will be regular hotel rooms with no kitchenettes.
Okay. And then with the provisions or the zoning in this proposal, you'd be able to rent those longer term stay rooms up to how long? For up to how long?
I don't think there's a restriction, but the anticipation is the average stay would be somewhere between 3 to 7 days.
Okay. And are you able to give us a bit of a sense of where this will fit kind of in the market for hotel rooms in terms of mid-range or upper end? Because we not only have a shortage of hotel rooms, but we've also lost particularly a lot of the mid-price point hotels.
Yeah, these rooms are small on the smaller side of hotel rooms, so they will be priced lower than probably most hotel rooms in the city, but they are on the smaller side. And that's on one part of the hotel. The extended stay are larger rooms than probably a typical hotel, but that's a smaller portion of the hotel.
Okay, so they're smaller in terms of, like, how small are they?
250 square feet or so.
Okay. And if you were to get this approved today and all things being equal, do you have a projected opening time frame?
We think it'll be another year to finish the DP process and BP process, and we'd hope to be under construction in 2025.
Construction in 2025, so not completing for a few, 2 or 3
And it will
years
take
beyond
3
that.
years to finish. Yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Joe.
Thanks, Chair. So I have a question to staff. So I noticed this design of this building is right on the property line of the land. I think early this week, council received a letter from the other owner of the land next to this building. So, is there any potential impact on the other land? And what is our plan to maximize the total benefit for the land?
David Shaw, Development Planner. Thank you for the question. I'm guessing that you're talking about the 852 Seymour Street?
That's right, yes.
The approved hotel? Yeah. See, the adjacent site directed to the south is a 7-story office development with the heritage retention approved in 2022 under base zoning, and the building height is below 70 feet, which does not trigger any tower separation requirements. And we also have conditions of approval under 1.4 to ensure that, to mitigate privacy and overlook from these adjacent hotels.
Okay, and there's no impact on I think there's a heritage building next door as well, right?
Yes.
Actually, building, yeah.
Yes. So there is a heritage building which is retained in as part of the hotel, and yeah, this is that hotel development. That heritage building is not a rezoning project. It's under a base zoning DP, so it doesn't. They can't go higher than the base height of 70 feet.
Good. The other question is, I think residential building will have a 80 feet
yes.
Separation, but for this commercial building, what is the separation?
Yes, so just so you know, the proposed development complies with minimum 80 feet tower separation to the 2 residential towers to the west, the Capitol Residence, and to the south, the Vita Building, to ensure that privacy and overlook is met. I think you're talking about the Alaria residential tower to the north. Director planning is exercising discretion by relaxing the tower separation down to minimum 60 feet, given the urgent need for additional hotel rooms in the downtown core. Staff are seeking further design development to reduce privacy and overlook impacts to the neighboring residents, and this is also reflected in the conditions of approval.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful. That's all my question, Chair. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Joe. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks very much. I was actually going to ask a similar question. I think a whole bunch of us on council received that correspondence from the adjacent landowner. I'm not sure if staff has received that as well, but it's my understanding that they are potentially looking to rezone that property as well to build a hotel tower. So I guess following up on Councillor Joe's question, is there any opportunity there for another hotel tower within that block? Is there enough tower separation? That's the staff.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Meisner. Kevin Span, Senior Development Planner for MetroCore. So just building off of what my colleague David said, that site has been determined to effectively be built out to its highest and best use under zoning at what is approved as the DP. If we were to start going above 70 feet with that application, then we're pushing up against tower separation requirements from both this hotel development and the adjacent residential building. If they were to build a hotel tower there, I think they would probably end up with maybe 30 feet of tower separation with existing condo units in that existing condo tower, which is beyond what we would recommend a relaxation to.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, so effectively, the applicant is welcome to submit a rezoning application, but our review of the site is showing that it's at DP, sort of the highest and best use.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it for me.
Thanks, Councillor Meisner. And now I'd added myself to the queue. I have just a general question for either staff or the applicant, and recognizing that this is, a thoughtful fit, but well-needed hotel space. I see that there is a note in there from the UDP about public realm on Seymour Street and some recommendations. Could you just paraphrase what the recommendations we're looking for and how the applicants expected to respond to some of the public realm concerns on Seymour?
David Shaw, Development Planner. Thank you for the question. Yeah, so the DODP and the guideline anticipate at-grade open space with visual relief to create distinctive, active, and vibrant streetscape. This is also, as you mentioned, responding to the UDP's recommendation. It's a pretty, as you know, downtown core is pretty tight, and there are, it's quite a tight site. So given the important context in the downtown core, staff feels that further visual relief on the ground level will contribute to an active and vibrant interface with the pedestrian realm.
Great, thanks. So maybe I'll kick it over to the applicant and ask if they feel that they can kind of respond to those needs and meet that kind of direction. And further, while I have you up here, maybe a little bit about just, obviously this is a new kind of hotel in the combination of long-term and short-term, and we see less for the big restaurants and that banquet kind of space. And can you maybe speak a bit to how this hotel design responds to new trends in hospitality?
Yeah, okay, I'll start with that. Yeah, the type of hotel we're doing is a new type of hotel with kind of smaller rooms and then public areas that are entertainment focused. And that's the design for this hotel. So the ground floor is designed for more entertainment focused food and beverage orientated. And the idea is people are supposed to be in the public areas versus in their rooms versus extended stay may be a little bit different where people are more in their rooms. So it kind of caters to kind of two different ends of the spectrum of hotels. Yeah. And then as far as the public realm and the interface, this hotel is designed to have F&B at the base. So it's supposed to interact with the street. It's supposed to be open to the street. It's supposed to, you're supposed to be able to see the action, the liveliness inside. And that's been the design of the podium. It's very glassy, you know, it's very permeable. As well as we've been working with staff on creating some setback areas to provide some relief to the street wall. And, you know, we're quite happy with the end result, and I think planning is as well.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks very much. Seeing no further questions, appreciate that. At this point, I'm going to issue the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-853-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. So opening it up to the public, we do have speaker number one, Victoria Banham. Victoria Banham on the line, clerk?
I'm just checking.
Yes, I am.
Oh, hi, Victoria. If you can let us know if you're a resident of Vancouver and whether or not you support or oppose the application.
Yes, I am a resident of Vancouver, and I support it with some caveats. I live about a block away from the location, and actually, I used to frequently would be cutting through that parking lot to get to the library or to the restaurants on Robson Street, and thought to myself, they should build a hotel here. And of course, you know, we need a lot of new hotel spaces, so this makes a lot of sense. But I was taking a look through the application, and that parking lot is currently used, very well used, whenever there's events at BC Place or there are shows that the Orpheum, parking lot is packed. So you're taking away about, I'm not sure how many parking spots, but I think there's around 40 to 50, and you're replacing it with 59 parking spots, and then you're adding 393 hotel rooms, and the parking to me is just really, really insufficient. It's like a crazy low amount of parking. And so I think that they should really reconsider that. And they could even put like an EV charging station on each floor by expanding the parking. But the parking is just way too low because that particular lot services a lot of entertainment venues around the area. And so you need to address the parking that is being removed. And the other thing I was going to mention was I looked at the towers and the units that are going to be, or the rooms, let's call them rooms, and the long-term hotel rooms, people probably might be there for longer, like maybe a month or two, and they don't have any sort of, they should maybe think about putting some storage units in for those people. But overall, a hotel in that location just makes a lot of sense, but they need to add more parking.
All right.
So that's my, those are my thoughts.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much, Victoria. No questions from council. Next on the list, speaker number 2, Naresh Mann. First, do we have Naresh on the line? Hi, Naresh. You may have momentarily lost Naresh. Maybe while we're trying to get Naresh back on the line, we'll invite Robert Ellis, who is in person. Good afternoon, Robert. If you can share your name and whether you're a Vancouver resident and if you support or oppose the application.
Acting Mayor Fry and councillors, thank you for the opportunity of addressing you. My name is Robert Ellis. I'm a longtime resident of the City of Vancouver, and I'm speaking in support of the application as an immediate neighbor of the property. I am the owner of 853 Richard Street, which is immediately across the lane from the applicant property, 848 Seymour. And I represent one of the only 3 properties that are most impacted by any development at 848 Seymour Street. I've owned 853 Richards for over 30 years. It's a small office building where I worked every day. During that time, I've watched the entire area be transformed from soulless parking lots, dreary single-story commercial buildings with little active human activity, to a vibrant, dynamic, and contemporary residential and commercial community that restored life to the area. On my immediate south, originally, there was a 3-story open-air concrete parking lot. About 15 years ago, the city rezoned that lot and the one across the lane on Seymour Street to allow 2 approximately 30-story condos with commercial at street level. What had been a somewhat dangerous, dark, dingy, unappealing blight was transformed into a bright, inviting community filled with youth, vitality, and life, and even has a medical clinic. And I've lived there through noisy and very disruptive construction on my neighboring sites, which is no fun. And if this approved, I will have to live through that again. But that's the price of progress, and the end result is worth it. To have a much-needed, beautiful hotel that will enhance the attractiveness of the area, bring life, vigor, and economic activity to an otherwise unattractive parking lot, and continue the ongoing improvement of this area. Your choices are a soulless parking lot for this or this hotel. It's a pretty easy choice. So I fully support the application, and if I can be so bold as to address a question that you raised, Mr. Fry, and that is to do with the streetscape on it, and I only tell you this from my knowledge on the location for the last 30 years. Anytime there's a development that takes place down there, the city requires that the sidewalk be enlarged. My building and the building or this parking lot actually abuts right up against a relatively narrow sidewalk. So when a development is approved, historically, the sidewalk is being doubled or tripled in size, and that makes a much greater effect for pedestrians, and it's a very pedestrian intensive area. So, for what it's worth, that's a little local knowledge.
Yeah, no, thanks, Robert. And I will comment, I've always appreciated your building with the little courtyard there, and I know the building.
We have the tallest palm trees in British Columbia.
Do you? Wow, fantastic. Okay. Clerk, do we have Naresh Mann on the line?
I'm told that, yes, they are back on the line.
Great. Hi, Naresh, can you hear us?
Oh, sorry. No, we seem to be having some issues. At the break, we will contact
All right,
the speaker.
so unless there's anybody else here who wants to come up to the podium right now, we're going to take a 5-minute break. And this will be the final call for speakers. If there are any speakers to this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by, wait, you're not taking the break yet. Come on, you guys. No, we still have quorum. Please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 before the close with pound. Before the close of the speakers list, the phone number is on X and made available on the live stream. And now we'll take the 5 minutes for any additional speakers to come on. Thank you. Clerk, do we have quorum? Okay. Now, do we have any other speakers on the line?
Yes, we've got an added speaker by the name of Peter.
Yes.
Hi, Peter. If you can let us know your full name, whether you're a resident of Vancouver, and if you are in support or not of this application, please.
Yes, my name is Peter Nize, Knize. I am indeed a resident of Vancouver, and I am calling to express opposition to the proposal. Am I on now where I'm live and I can speak further?
Yeah, no, please go ahead. You've got 5 minutes to explain your position.
Great, thank you so much. So we are fairly recent residents of Vancouver who have moved in to town from the Fraser Valley, and after saving up for many years to purchase an apartment in Vancouver, we have gotten what we feel is our dream apartment, and it happens to be in Capital Residences, directly across Seymour Street from the proposal. And I am looking out my window at this moment at BC Place, and if it were clear, I could see Mount Baker. And despite what we've always heard about the importance of preserving sight lines and views and openness in Vancouver, that building will utterly block our view and be so close to our balcony off our bedroom that it looks to us that the distance between the buildings, we could take a broomstick and hand bottles of Grey Poupon across to people in the hotel. And we will be basically taking our beautiful views and we will be walled in by the height of this new building. Along with that, someone mentioned earlier about the parking situation and the traffic here, and it is very congested. There is difficulty parking often for people. Obviously, we live in the building and we have our own space, but we see right out our window what happens when there are events at all of the area venues, from the Orpheum to all the other places where things happen. And the traffic that comes off the Granville Bridge and up Seymour and creates the congestion here would only get worse, especially with a facility that only has such an incredibly small number of parking spaces proposed. We were shocked to see how few spaces there'd be for such a large building. We anticipated that if something were to be built in that parking lot, that it would not rise to such a height that it would create a wall alongside our building and completely obliterate the views that we paid for and cherished to come here. And I apologize for sounding kind of NIMBY, not in my backyard, but I'm really shocked at how close that building will be to ours. It will block out the daylight here and transform living here in a rather dramatic way. And again, I want to speak in opposition of this plan as currently put forward because primarily of the height and size of the building and the incredibly limited amount of parking that they're proposing. It seems to be too large a building for that tiny little footprint there, and it's something that was much shorter and didn't create a wall that high, I think would be more appropriate.
Okay, thanks, Peter, and thank you for the Grey Poupon reference. That did get a chuckle from those of us of a certain vintage and went right over the head of the rest of them. So good on you. You do have questions from another Peter, Councillor Peter Meisner, with questions.
Oh, I actually I took myself off, Councillor Fry. It was a question for staff. I believe I have to do that after the speakers, right?
Sure, yep, you do. Okay, in that case, Peter, thanks for your comments. You have no questions from council. Okay, Clerk, do we have anybody else?
Just checking. And the answer is no.
Great. In that case, seeing as there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing as there are little or no comments received after 12 p.m., I'm now closing receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Oh, seeing none, do staff have any closing comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one thing. Councillor Kirby-Young mentioned that had questions at the beginning around the enabling policy that allowed for consideration. There's the existing policy is the rezoning policy for the central business district, and in that policy it allows for consideration of hotels, and so that's outside of the Granville Street planning process. So the consideration of the rezoning was enabled before that process had started. Thank you.
Thank you. And speaking of Councillor Kirby-Young and questions, Councillor Kirby-Young has questions of staff, and this is the opportunity for council to ask questions of staff. Councillor Kirby-Young?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was compelled to ask a question following up on our Grey Poupon speaker with respect to the ratio of parking, and if staff can comment, because I know we can't ask the applicant questions at this point, but if staff can comment on the parking ratio and the part of the discussion about typically how many hotel guests typically would actually drive to a centrally located downtown hotel, and how that parking requirement might differ, for example, say from a equivalent 30-story residential tower where you may have people living in the city.
Right. I mean, I can't speak to what they're expecting in terms of how many people would drive, and that analysis has been taken. I would say that the proposal is required to meet the parking bylaw. And so there's different ways of meeting that parking bylaw, and you'll see a number of conditions in Part 1 of Appendix B that look to ensure that that is met. So it would be the amount of parking that's required for this type of use. Also noting that you're right downtown and close to transit. And so I think through the Transportation Demand Management Plan, there's opportunity to reduce the amount of parking on there, just given the central location.
Okay, and sorry, can you just, I'm flipping madly here, can you just recap the parking requirement for this specific use for us, so everybody's clear?
I don't have the specific, so if you have a look at conditions 1.24 speak to the parking and transportation demand and management requirements. And so through the later stages of the development permit process, the applicant will work with the city to ensure that these are met, and the parking that's adequate to the development will be delivered.
Okay, and then there was another speaker also that spoke about provision for electric charging stations. And can you comment on the policy requirement in new builds such as this for inclusion of, and I know that there are specific ones to hotel, because I recall we approved an increase last term in terms of what's required for electric vehicle charging.
I don't know offhand what the requirement would be for this use, and none of my colleagues are getting up, and so we could follow up on that. And
I see Councillor Meisner has questions, so I'm happy if staff want to think about that to
Sure.
go off the queue and let Councillor Meisner advance while you come up with that.
Sure, we'll do that.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I had a question following back up on the tower separation thing, and this came up based on the comments from the Capital Residences resident. The relaxation that was mentioned, is that between this building and Capital Residences, or is that between this building and a different building? The relaxation. That's for staff.
David Shaw, Development Planner. Thank you for the question. The relaxation of 60 feet is not to the Capital Residence. Capital Residence is actually maintaining minimum tower separation of 80 feet. So it's actually going beyond 80 feet, which is good. So yes.
Okay.
So the 60
So
feet, is to the Alaria building to the north.
Mm-hmm. So it exceeds the minimum tower separation, is what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay, that's reassuring. And then was there any thought given to the positioning of this new hotel tower and that particular residential tower to ensure that they're like not right in front of each other?
Are you
or what does it look like? Is there a gap? Like what I'm trying to get at is the Capital Residences is on the west side of the street and this is on the east side of the street. Are they literally like facing each other, or is there kind of like a juxtaposition or a gap there?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Meisner. It's Kevin Span, Senior Development Planner for the Metro Core. Just adding to what David had mentioned, it is exceeding the 80 feet, so just reinforcing that. But we worked closely with this applicant going back a number of years, 2 years when this was still just an inquiry. And part of that exercise included looking not just at the placement of the building, but also what are the uses, what are the spatial uses of the tower across the street to ensure that we're doing everything that we can, not just through tower separation, but also in terms of placement of the tower, understanding what's going on in the adjacent condo building, to mitigate as much as possible any privacy concerns. With a building like this, which is it's a significant intervention on a tight urban site, it's hard to really move around the tower too much. But we feel that the applicant has put forward a solid effort to ensure that direct overlook with all the neighbors is mitigated as much as possible. And that includes really sticking to that tower separation requirement.
Okay, thanks very much. That's reassuring, and glad to hear that it actually exceeds that separation requirement. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Kevin. Councillor Kirby-Young, did you need to get back? You're okay with the EV question? All right. Oh.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, go for it. Thank you.
I found the report, and so by the looks of things, it's 100% of parking stalls, including shared vehicle stalls and accessible, should be EV ready.
Thank you. I knew we had raised it to a much higher standard with new properties, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young. Now Council will make a decision on the application. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councillor Joe. Is there any debate? Seeing Councillor Kirby-Young first on the queue.
Yeah, this is our last public hearing of the year, and it's nice to see the diversity of projects that we have in front of us this afternoon, from residential to community care use for seniors and now hotel. And I'm particularly excited about the hotel piece because, as was mentioned, we do have a dramatic shortage of hotel rooms. The study that was undertaken by MNP on behalf of Destination Vancouver quantified that in the coming generation, we have a shortage of 10,000 hotel rooms, and that demand in the downtown area will exceed supply of available rooms by the summer of 2026, the same year that we are hosting FIFA, which is pretty significant. And very similar to residential, when we have a shortage of rental units, the rates do not get cheaper. In fact, the hotel rooms become more expensive. And that makes it challenging for a variety of people to be able to visit our city. It's also a lot of untapped economic opportunity, and I often say that tourism is the sector that is the unsung hero, and yet it employs and has similar economic impact to a number of people in key industries that do get a lot more attention sometimes for their economic power, such as mining and sort of traditional resource industries. So I'm really happy to see this project coming forward. I think that land prices are expensive, so there is a trend in terms of smaller rooms that are coming in, just like there is for smaller residences, but the emphasis is put a lot on the public space and the public rooms, and that's certainly, I think, what we've heard here. But 393 rooms is a pretty good-sized hotel towards that shortage of the 10,000 rooms that was quantified, so I'm happy to see that. I just wish that we could get them built more quickly because it takes a bit of time to get them delivered, but I think it's going to be a great addition, and while it's not directly related to the Granville Street Planning Initiative, I think it will support not only the tourism sector and our overall economy, but it will also support, I think, the revitalization of the Granville Entertainment District as we go through that planning process and we see positive sort of new uses coming in that are bringing in a diversity of people, such as the new rec room offering some more pub-style offerings in addition to nightclubs and that sort of thing. So I think it's great to see this. And I think we're, if you kind of look at the old adage, we're unpaving the parking lot and putting up a hotel, and that's a good thing. So thank you very much. I'm happy to support it.
Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, I'm really happy to support this as well, and coincidentally, just live a few blocks from the site, so very familiar with the parking lot, and really is one of the kind of gaps in the neighborhood in terms of development and amenities. So this hits on so many things. The desperate need for hotel rooms that Councillor Kirby-Young just outlined so well, but also the need to bring activity and vitality to the block. So this is a really active neighborhood, and that's one of the things I love about being in this neighborhood. But I also live next to a hotel, and it's great to see guests going out. Maybe it's their first time in Vancouver, and they're going out to Robson Street to patronize the businesses and go to restaurants. And I just think it adds so much to the neighborhood, so much more than a surface parking lot. So it seems that this development is quite well thought out and sensitive to its neighbors and the surroundings. So very happy to support this and get those, a few hundred more desperately needed hotel rooms online here in Vancouver, as well as the food and beverage options that will be in the hotel, which will be accessible to people who aren't staying there. So looking forward to seeing this move forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Meisner. Councillor Claassen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll be really brief. I will also echo the comments of my other colleagues here that on the emphasis for hotel room development is something that is going to be really important and critical to our economy. But I just wanted to circle back to Robert Ellis's comments when he came to the podium and he talked about the evolution of the neighborhood and how it was the change that he saw moving away from sort of empty spaces and from surface parking lots that we had quite a few of and still have a few of in our city here. And it's the work of proponents like on this project and as well the city that is creating that kind of evolution of our important downtown space and making it so much more livable. And I just wanted to acknowledge those words because I agree with him. I see positive change happening, and having a new project like this on that block will go a long way to raising the energy and making it a much more livable place. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Claassen. All right. We're time for a vote. It's been moved and seconded, so yeah, if we can move to a voting queue. Right, and that passes with none in opposition and Councillors Carr and Mayor Sim absent. Thank you, everybody. We have one last item, I believe. Right. Final item of the day and the year. Item number 5, CD1 rezoning for 1710 to 1730 East Pender Street. Does any member of council wish to declare conflict of interest on item 5? Okay, seeing none, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
It's an application by Dialogue BC Architecture, Engineering, Interior Design Planning to rezone 1710 to 1730 East Pender Street from RM4 to RM4N residential districts to comprehensive development district. To permit the development of an 18-story mixed-use building containing 191 social housing units, including 6 live work units and ground floor commercial space. A floor space ratio of 5.58 and a height of 16.8 meters with additional height for rooftop amenity spaces are proposed. General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referred to public hearing: 9 pieces in support, 8 pieces in opposition, and 3 pieces dealing with other aspects. That represents our correspondence received up to 12:30 p.m. today.
Thank you, Clerk. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to issue the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on the website formerly known as Twitter and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Great. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Alison Smith, and I'm the rezoning planner for the rezoning application at 1710 to 1730 East Pender Street, being considered under the Grandview Woodland Community Plan. The site is located on the southeast corner of East Pender Street and Commercial Drive. There are currently 2 apartment buildings on the site containing 36 rental housing units with a total of 36 rental tenancies. Existing tenants will receive support under the Tenant Relocation and Protection Policy. The area is characterized by a mix of uses and forms, including low-rise apartment buildings, single detached dwellings, industrial buildings, and mixed-use buildings along Hastings Street. The site is located within close distance to a number of parks and community spaces as shown on the slide. The site is within the catchment area of Britannia Elementary and Secondary Schools, both of which are less than 800 meters away. The site is located within the Grandview Woodland Community Plan area. The plan centers on a number of planning principles, including to support the goals of reconciliation in partnership with the Indigenous community, to support a range of affordable housing options to meet the needs of the community, and to enhance culture, heritage, and creativity. The site is located within the Commercial Drive North area of the plan, which calls for buildings of 6 stories with an FSR of 3 for market housing. The plan's housing policies allow for consideration of additional height and density for non-market housing, and in particular for Indigenous housing. This section of the plan also speaks to achieving a diversity of housing forms and approaches to meet the range of needs for urban Indigenous residents. In addition, the plan allows for redevelopment of existing non-market housing properties to preserve and increase affordability over the long term. Various other city documents, objectives, and targets are applicable when considering this project, some of which are shown on the slide. The rezoning application proposes to advance the city's social housing goals under the Housing Vancouver strategy, as well as key equity and reconciliation commitments that require affordable and accessible housing as a foundation for action. As a city of reconciliation, the city commits to forming a sustained relationship of mutual respect and understanding with local First Nations and the urban Indigenous community. This project is an action in support of reconciliation by facilitating Indigenous-owned, operated, and occupied spaces, and by providing affordable rental housing opportunities that will prioritize Indigenous peoples. Council adopted an equity framework in 2021 to lead the city's internal processes and decision-making as it relates to equity, and to demonstrate how concepts of equity can be embedded into the city's work through individual and organizational commitments. Through legislation and regulation, the city can remove systemic barriers to housing and prioritize accessible housing for equity-denied groups. In March 2021, City Council adopted a motion to create an UNDRIP task force, which was convened in partnership with the Musqueam Indian Band, Squamish Nation, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. This rezoning application aligns with a number of calls to action within the UNDRIP strategy by promoting access to culturally safe, affordable housing for urban Indigenous residents and economic opportunities for Indigenous-led social enterprise in new commercial spaces and live-work units. The rezoning application was submitted on May 19, 2023, representing a 7-month timeline to public hearing. The application proposes an 18-story mixed-use building with a partial 19th-level rooftop longhouse amenity area. The tower is concentrated at the Commercial Drive frontage, and a 3- and 6-story mid-rise form with a courtyard extends from the building along East Pender Street. The project proposes 191 social housing units, of which 6 would be live-work units, thereby increasing the amount of non-market housing on the site. New commercial spaces are proposed along Commercial Drive. An FSR of 5.58 and a building height of 199 feet to the top of the residential parapet and 210 feet to the top of the rooftop amenity area are proposed. The housing would be operated by the Luma Native Housing Society and would prioritize housing opportunities for urban Indigenous residents. The project proposes to exceed the city's definition of social housing, which requires a minimum of 30% of units to be below housing income limits or HILS rental rates. The applicant has advised that at least 30% of units will be at below housing income limits at rent geared to income rates, and the project also proposes 6% of units at shelter rate, with monthly rents for these units at $500. The remaining units may be rented up to market rents. However, depending on senior government funding and financing, the applicant will seek to deepen the affordability of these units. The applicant may lease a portion of the units in the component that can be rented up to market rents as affordable leasehold home ownership, with monthly payments to the nonprofit operator at no more than 30% of their household income. A virtual question and answer period was held this past June. A total of 163 submissions were received. Support was expressed for this project, in particular as it proposes an increase in social housing units and prioritizes urban Indigenous residents. Some residents expressed support for the height and density for this location and for the addition of new commercial space along this section of Commercial Drive. Others supported the number of vehicle parking spaces, as well as the high number of bicycle spaces proposed. Comments of concern related to the proposed height and density of the building at this location, as well as its impact on neighborhood character. Some respondents noted that nearby amenities and services do not have enough capacity to accommodate new residents. Others indicated concern with the displacement of existing tenants on the site, as well as the number of parking spaces proposed. There was also concern noted about the loss of large trees and green space on the site. And although the plan permits up to 6 stories for market housing development in this area, additional height and density can be considered for social housing projects, as is proposed in this rezoning application. The height, density, and commercial space is concentrated along Commercial Drive with a 3- and 6-story residential component on the eastern portion of the site, which provides a transition to lower-scale residential forms along East Pender Street. The proposed form of development is an appropriate response to the site context and is supported by the emerging directions with the Vancouver Plan and aligns with the city's priority to deliver affordable housing for Indigenous peoples. Staff acknowledge that many of our community centers and amenities are generally well subscribed across the city, and staff are looking at strategies to meet demand across the portfolio as part of future capital planning reviews. In terms of parking, the proposed development will be required to meet the parking bylaw. Site redevelopment will require demolition of existing rental housing buildings, and as such, the applicant has provided a tenant relocation plan, or TRP, for all tenants, which meets the requirements of the city's tenant relocation and protection policy for non-market housing. Staff acknowledge that site redevelopment will also result in removal of all existing trees on the property, and staff have included landscape conditions to ensure healthy growth of new trees, including 1 new large specimen tree on the site, details of which would be determined at the development permit stage. In conclusion, this proposal can be considered under the Grandview Woodland Community Plan. The rezoning application advances the city's social housing targets under the Housing Vancouver strategy, in addition to the city's commitments around equity and reconciliation. Staff support this application, subject to the conditions contained in Appendix B of the referral report. And staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions. My understanding that Barbara Lawson-Swain of the Luma Native Housing Society Aboriginal Land Trust is here to say a few things about the Housing Society and is available for questions as well.
Great, thanks, Allison. And then we'll invite the applicant up then to speak to the application.
I'm shorter than you. I didn't know. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Barbara Lawson-Swain. I have 2 traditional names. One is Giksan Jules, which is from my Nishka territory, and Clachwaith, which is from my Heiltsuk territory, but I was born and raised here in Vancouver. I am the Director of Housing Operations and Programs of Luma Native Housing Society, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about our organization and those that we help and assist for housing. Luma's group of companies has developed, owns, and manages more than 550 affordable housing units for Indigenous individuals and families. Our main goal of our organization is to create the necessary health and wellness conditions for urban Indigenous peoples. The need for Indigenous housing in Vancouver is a pressing issue that requires both attention and action. Indigenous peoples of Canada, including those living in Vancouver, face disproportionately high rates of homelessness and inadequate housing conditions. As you are aware, this situation is rooted in a history of colonization, displacement, and systemic discrimination. Indigenous peoples have faced significant challenges in accessing safe, affordable, and culturally appropriate housing. Many Indigenous individuals and families are forced to live in overcrowded and substandard conditions, which have detrimental effects on their health and well-being. The lack of suitable housing options also contributes to the cycle of poverty and homelessness among Indigenous communities, and more so Indigenous peoples living in Canada's urban areas. Culturally appropriate housing is crucial for Indigenous peoples as it allows them to maintain their cultural practices, traditions, and connections to their communities. Indigenous housing should incorporate cultural elements such as communal spaces, traditional designs, and access to cultural programming and support services. This approach recognizes the importance of cultural identity and self-determination in addressing housing needs of Indigenous peoples. This rezoning application aims to address the need for Indigenous housing in Vancouver and needs to involve collaboration between Indigenous housing providers, government agencies such as yourselves, and sometimes other Indigenous-led nonprofit organizations. Thank you for allowing us to speak here today, as it is our strong opinion that it is essential to engage Indigenous peoples in the decision-making process and ensure that their voices and perspectives are heard and respected. This includes recognizing and respecting Indigenous rights, land stewardship, and self-governance in housing initiatives. Investments in affordable housing, supportive housing, and social programs targeted specifically towards Indigenous communities are necessary to address the currently growing housing crisis. This includes providing funding and land for the construction, maintenance, and operations of Indigenous-led housing projects, such as the proposed site in this application, specific to housing for our family housing portfolio for individuals such as students, elders, youth that have aged out of care, and students and families. In conclusion, the need for Indigenous housing in Vancouver is a critical issue that requires your immediate and ongoing attention. By addressing the unique housing needs of Indigenous peoples and incorporating cultural elements into housing initiatives, we can work towards creating safe, affordable, and culturally appropriate housing options that support the well-being and self-determination of Indigenous individuals. This proposal addresses a site that can expand our Luma Native Housing Society's capacity to at least 3 times the amount, with the potential of 5 times. This number may sound exaggerated. However, given that we have between 4,500 to 5,500 people on our current waitlist, and we are grossly overrepresented in all of the most recent homeless counts, fluctuating between 33% and 38% of the total count, even though we are only less than 5% of the total population. This number also does not account for the continually growing urban Indigenous community of Vancouver. Please consider this rezoning application, as it will assist us to provide a greater number of units for the existing need of the urban Indigenous community of the City of Vancouver. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thanks, Barbara. All right. This is an opportunity for any questions from council to staff or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant. Starting with Councillor Montague.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This may seem like a bit of a strange question to staff, but it just sort of, and it's not necessarily in relation to this particular application, but in the presentation it mentioned tree replacement. And in other rezonings and public hearings, we talk, there's a lot of talk about retention, and I'm wondering when there's a difference between retention versus replacement and how that works exactly.
Thanks for your question. It depends on the site and the implications on the project or the proposed building itself. So in some cases, we're able to work with an applicant to retain trees, and in other cases, demolition of the existing building might cause the existing trees to have to come down. So it really depends on a site-by-site basis. For this project itself, the applicant has advised that they cannot retain any of the trees on the site. There'll be new street trees that would be added. And we have required a condition in the landscape conditions that would require 1 new large specimen tree at a minimum on the site. But it really depends on a site-by-site basis.
Is there always at the very least, a replacement aspect?
Not always, but maybe it really does depend, but I'll have Yardley fill in.
I'm always trying, if there's so many rules, that I'm trying to still figure them all out.
Often it has a lot to do with just the building footprint. Can you save a perimeter tree on a lot and still deliver a footprint that's viable for a project? In this case, that didn't turn out to be the case. Some of the original buildings are smaller than a new footprint is, and then getting into a larger building, you're expanding that and working on essentially altering an existing tree. So as Allison indicated, it really varies from project to project. Our goal is to try to replace trees when we can. And so you'll see landscape conditions in almost every rezoning report that say add new on-site trees and any new perimeter street trees where that's appropriate.
Okay, and is there a preference between retention and replacement, and is there one tree has to be taken down? Is there a must to replace twice or 3 times? Is there a?
It's not a number per number perspective. It really has a lot to do with the appropriateness on the site plan after this new building is proposed. So the preference is always to try to keep mature trees because it affects our heat dome. It's a climate action issue as well. And so if you've got anything that's a very large specimen, we'll work really hard to try to keep that if it's not sitting within the building footprint. If it is, then it's difficult to keep it. But if it's on the perimeter, we'll really work hard to do that. In this case, Allison indicated there's a requirement to add back in one large specimen tree. That's a big issue. That's a big ask, essentially. And it's appropriate as only one tree, but we wouldn't go beyond that because essentially this is a social housing project. And we call it our partners with LUMA. We're really interested in delivering social housing. So our goal is to try to help them get as much as they can in terms of units.
And like I said, it's not necessarily particular to this project. It's sort of me trying to understand.
Yeah.
Because this topic comes up a lot with tree retention versus replacement. So is it not dependent? So is it or is it not dependent on density, FSR, or the proposal itself, or is it?
I would say more about the proposal itself and the footprint of the building and the site it's sitting on. And in that case, it's really unique to each property.
Okay, thanks for helping me understand that. Appreciate it.
Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I had a question. I'm not sure if this is for staff or the applicant, but I was wondering with the existing rental buildings that are on site to be demolished, will there be any efforts to allow those people to move into this new building once it's complete?
Thank you for the question. We do have housing staff on the line. If they can respond to this question.
Hello, Mayor and Council. This is Sarah Robin, Housing Planner. Thank you for the question. Certainly, we are working with the applicant team in developing a tenant relocation plan based on the non-market TRP requirements. And certainly a big part of that is ensuring that all of the tenants are provided the opportunity to return to the new building at affordable rent. So that will certainly be part of the TRP process. Thanks for the question.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks, Councillor Meisner. And I actually put myself on the queue for similar questions, knowing the TRPP is a little bit different on social housing projects, but I'm satisfied with that answer. So clearing the queue, no further questions from council. And at this point, I'm going to put out a second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. Before the close of the speakers list, the phone number will be posted on the website formerly known as Twitter and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. And we will now hear from the public. Clerk, do we have any speakers on the line or in person to provide comments to this item?
Yes, Chair Fry, we have speaker number 1, Stephen Bohas, and that's in person.
Great, thanks. And Stephen will remind you to say whether or not you're in support or not of this project and if you're a resident of Vancouver.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. I have a presentation that I'd like to have brought up. Oh, and just give me a second. I've got another And am I able to advance my slides, or will I have to ask for slide advance?
That's a great question, Stephen. I'm not exactly sure how that works.
You can just say advance.
I'll have to say next. Okay.
Okay, so David will take care of it. Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, so just give me a second. I'll get my notes. Just be great to have a slightly bigger podium here. Okay, so yeah, we can get started at any time.
Right.
I'll try to go quickly. My name's Stephen Boas. I live in the community. I'm a renter. I have a degree in landscape architecture. And I'm really concerned about what this will do to the place where I live as an RM4 and to other places in the community. Next slide, please. I was involved in this Granby community planning process, and I spoke at the council committee meeting at the start of the process and when it was essentially adopted in July of 2016. And I'm here to speak on the day that the community plan will be destroyed. Because if you pass it, that will happen. Councillor Carr was in this large crowd in 2013 with a lot of people opposing the emerging directions. So council hit a reset. Next slide, please. And we had the community assembly, citizens assembly, we had community meetings, and I would just like challenge Allison Smith if we could just go back in time to 2015 to have her address this group with those words. It would not have gone over very well. I was there, and if we go to the next slide. We had a citizens assembly, 48 people. If you look at their final report in 2015, it clearly said that this is supposed to be a site with 4 stories with commercial at grade. And this is all because of Councillor Carr's motion there. And the CA was overridden by city staff, which had 6 FSR on one of the lots, or sorry, 6 stories and 3 FSR on commercial drive, and on the outside of the lot, 2.4 maximum. Next slide. This is what we have, 1710 E Pender. It's been under LUMA control since 1988. There are 27 units, built in 1986. So I think there's a huge environmental cost in tearing down a mature building like this. This is non-market housing as part of the missing middle, and it actually should be preserved. It's a huge waste of resources to landfill this. And anyone who wants to call themselves an environmentalist, you just can't support this. Next slide. This is a building that actually was acquired in February of 2002 for $3.5 million by Alt. And Alt was formed in February of 2022, I should say. It was purchased in February of 2022. And it's shown as market rental in the Granby Woodland Community Plan map. You can see 3 of the 6 mature Douglas firs here. And there's a $9.4 million mortgage on it from the date of purchase of February 2022. At 6% plus prime. And there is city land here along the street, so I'm just wondering, is there an appraisal here? Next slide. This is a computer model I made. This is actually really a 20-story building because of 10-foot and 10-foot-6 floor-to-floor heights. This would set a precedent for demolitions in the area, speculative pressures. Next slide. During the consultation that was just sprung with about 5 days notice from when we learned about the application in the community, staff provided a fake shadow diagram for analysis. I produced one. I know there's been a shadow diagram that's been released on December 1st, but this is what we had to work with. Next slide. You can see the huge externalities on the site. This is actually the comparison of point cloud data of the ADNAC towers, and you can see the scale when you talk about stories versus dimensional height. It's actually a huge building. And ADNAC towers are 2.2 FSR and not 5.6. Next slide. Here's a comparison just up the street with Francis and 1833 Francis. And you can also see this big difference between dimensional height and floor height. And these buildings were built very long time ago. Next slide. I've got some slides here of the area in the context. Next slide. See, it's huge, and you can see the externalities of the pressures on all the surroundings. Next slide. This is a view along Pender Street. I wish I had the data of the buildings. The city doesn't release it under FY now. Next slide. And that's a view from Commercial Drive. This would completely change the scale of the area. Next slide. And you can see the whole context of the neighborhood towards Woodland Park. Next slide. And all of the affordable rental, where a lot of Native Indigenous people live, and renters might, like myself, this can just be torn up with this precedent. Luma owns other properties in Grandview Woodland, and essentially you would be scrapping the Grandview Woodland community plan if this were to go ahead. This does not meet the plan objectives, and I can go into that in a lot of detail. I have the computer model here. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Oh, and this is good reading. This is Jack King's book called Battleground Grandview. Some of you might actually have this from last term. It's 200 pages. It documents the entire process of the Grandview Woodland community plan. So this is some homework for people who weren't here during the planning process. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, seeing no questions. Speaker number 2, Luis Villegas. In person, is Luis Villegas here? Here. Great. Let's give you a minute to get set up and Stephen to...
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Luis Villegas. I own my home in Vancouver for over 35 years. I am speaking against this madness today. I have over 35 years' experience working as an urban design specialist in Canada and the U.S. I have completed revitalization projects in British Columbia and new urbanism projects in California, Utah, and Oregon and Alaska. In Vancouver, I designed Chinatown Square and provided the concept for the Olympic Village pro bono to the city. Human scale urbanism. I'm working currently on a book detailing how to end the housing crisis by building guaranteed affordable human scale urbanism. The working title is The Death and Life of Good Urbanism. I think Vancouver will be a bad example in that book, and then what we do in other places at human scale will be the good. Human scale urbanism is good urbanism. How could it be another way? We are building cities for people, not to maximize income. We build a city, we build a good city, one neighborhood at a time. These towers are destroying neighborhoods, one neighborhood at a time. So for example, in Chinatown Square, where the first Chinese mayor of Vancouver is permitting a tower to be built in a place where we said here in this room, speaking 20 years ago, that the square should be extended. Now that square, or that Chinatown Square, won't be able to set a precedent for neighborhoods like Woodland. The Woodland neighborhood would benefit from an urban square, but we're putting a tower in it instead. Living in a self-inflicted housing crisis, we are at a time characterized by two facts: lack of leadership here at council and lack of capacity there at staff. Lack of leadership is demonstrated by council putting a tower where a square should go. Lack of capacity is demonstrated by staff that can only imagine SkyTrain and towers, and that's my slide over there. The blue line shows the cost of housing, not in Vancouver, but in Metro, over the last 30 years or so. The vertical lines show the SkyTrain projects from the Expo line on the left to the Broadway Tunnel on the right, and the orange line is multifamily housing. And you can see that it's going up and up and up, and no end in sight, and no policy from this council in its first year sitting as our representatives. In Vancouver, we attract towers to extract revenue. In a nutshell, that is the Vancouverism. This project has a special role. It is the first tower in a neighborhood, so it's the bunker-busting bomb, setting the precedent to bring in more towers behind it. It's destroying a perfectly good building at 1710 East Pender, destroying 6 indigenous Douglas fir trees in order to plop down a tower. Nice work, ignoring two important facts. A, towers are not suitable for housing at-risk populations. And B, if either the developer or the staff had their heads screwed on right, they would know, like I do, that 1730 East Pender can be renovated. I can add 75% more space to that site.
Chair.
Lewis, I'm just going to interrupt you for a second.
I have a point of order. I believe it's this section 6.1 or 6.7 about speaker decorum, and perhaps we could refrain from referring to the staff as not having their head screwed on right and just focus on the substance of the application?
Yeah, Louis, I'm going to ask
I
you.
apologize for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so by adding 75% more space by simply going up to 4 stories on the existing 1730 site, it's possible to support higher levels of social functioning by putting all units with doors on the street, not elevators and corridors. And an infill and revitalization approach achieves 35% of the space that's going to be created by the tower at 10% of the cost. So you still have 90% of the capital available to go around the neighborhood and maybe activate 2 more sites. I've walked the site. It is full of these 1950s wood 3-story walk-ups. They all need revitalization. I conclude with a comment from a colleague and a lifelong Vancouver resident. If we block the views of the mountains and of the water, Vancouver looks just like Saskatoon.
Great. Thanks, Louis. You do have questions, if you don't mind, from Councillor Kirby-Young. Oh, my apologies. You don't have questions from Councillor
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, moving on the line, speaker number 3, Peter Lawrence Dowdy, member, Vancouver Area Neighbors Association. Speaker number 3 on the phone?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And just a reminder to state if you're a resident of Vancouver, whether you support or not this project.
Thanks. I am a resident of Vancouver, and I do support the project. And I really hope that council will support this project as well. This neighborhood has a recent and checkered past with supporting social housing projects. The stymied Kettle Society development from 5 years ago, a few blocks away, really made it seem like space for people who needed affordable housing would never be made in this neighborhood. There was a lot of opposition then to the kinds of people who supposedly would move into a building like that. And it does seem like there's a discouraging amount of opposition along those same lines to the development today. To that, I have to say that the kinds of people who need affordable housing are already among us. They didn't disappear when that development failed. They remained unhoused or precariously housed for these 5 years until this development came to council. And I really hope that they're not going to have to wait another 5 years if this development fails, because we are in a housing crisis, and urban Indigenous people in Vancouver are disproportionately harmed by that housing crisis. They're substantially overrepresented among the homeless population and amongst the precariously housed due to a legacy of distant and also extremely recent disruptions and dispossessions and disenfranchisement. So I think that this proposal is a great proposal. It's time to stop trying to shrink the size of the help that we give to people who need housing and try to maximize that. If we have a housing crisis, we should build as much housing as possible. This is a great proposal that will hopefully go straight to the people who need it the most, and I strongly support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Seeing no questions, moving on to speaker number 4, Paulette Nice. Is Paulette Nice on the line?
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Paulette Nice, and I am Nishka Haiva in Tsimshian, and I am a Vancouver resident, and I support the rezoning of 1710-1730 East Pender Street. I just want to touch a little bit about the UNDRIP Article 21 and Article 23, kind of like paraphrase. UNDRIP Article 21 states that Indigenous people have equal access to economic opportunity. Article 23 states that Indigenous peoples have the right to be actively involved in developing and determining health, housing, and other economic and social programs affecting them as far as possible to administer such programs through their own institutions. I also want to share like a little bit of personal story of myself. I came from a small community of probably not even 300 people, relocated here approximately 12 years ago with my daughter as a single mother. My end goal here when I relocated was to complete my education. So in doing that, which for the social programming aspect of it, the social housing, has created this opportunity and supported me through my education journey as well as my daughter. So fast forward to today, I have graduated with my Bachelor of Social Work. My daughter has graduated with her family community counseling, and we are now giving back to the Indigenous community. So I strongly believe in supporting the social housing for Luma, and yes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Paulette. You have no questions, but thank you for your contribution. Next on the list, speaker number 5, Jonathan. Is Jonathan on the line?
Hello.
Hi,
Yes,
Jonathan.
can you hear me?
And if you could give us your name and whether or not you're a citizen of or resident of Vancouver, and if you support or oppose the project. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jonathan. I'm a resident of Vancouver. I'm currently a tenant at 1710, which is on the docket today for rezoning. What can I say? Well, with Luma's housing, it really makes it a lot affordable housing for a lot of tenants who can't have a six-figure income or buy their own home like a lot of the people in the area. And it really makes a big difference when the school up the street is a focus school. It's a native focus school my kids go to called Huckpay. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I moved here in August 2020 to give my children a better lifestyle and a place where we are welcome and accepted as brown people in a brown culture. And that I hope that, this project goes through so that we can have a better unit and better social housing. It's not just about us, it's about 190 more families that need a place to stay, that can afford to stay and send their kids to good schools and live in a good community. This is my community, and this is where I'm going to stay. This is where my kids are probably going to grow up, and that's what I want. I want them to be able to have somewhere nice to live and somewhere new to live. The house we live in is a nice house, but it has its problems, and it's time to, move forward in our path with our people, and hopefully that we can get this project approved. Appreciate all your time, and I approve of this motion.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate your taking the time to call.
Thank you.
No questions, but thank you. Speaker number 6, Catherine Latane. Is Catherine Latane on the line? Hi, Catherine.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. My name is Catherine, and my family comes from Rocky Boy, Montana, and the Squamish Nation. I currently live in 1730 Pender Street, and just want to mention that they talked about, redoing it and updoing it. That building is so old. You really do need to tear it down to scratch to start all over again. I'm 100% in support of the new building. I think that a lot of our community comes from different locations all around Canada and even in the States, and they don't have families here, and they're isolated, and by having such a large building for many people, it takes away from that isolation. It brings cultural opportunities, it brings ceremonies, it brings so many positives that help for the health and well-being of our people. And I will just give an incident that recently happened, and I myself, this was the first time I've ever lived on my own since I was 16 years old, and I got really sick, and I was by myself, and my neighbor across the hall said, please let me be there for you. And that's how our community is. That's how we support each other. When somebody passes away, we have everybody gathers at their home and we share food and we bring things like toilet paper and snacks and different things that, you know, just bring comfort. So I can't speak highly enough of the idea of this business. I think that it's going to be an amazing project. I come from a long line of helpers. My grandmother actually was one of the 3 founders of the Vancouver Aboriginal Friendship Centre, which is on Hastings and Commercial. My grandmother lived in Luma housing for a large portion of her life. My mother and father lived in Luma housing for a large portion of their life. And now I'm in Luma housing, and for me, it's home. And it's as close to home as I'm ever going to get. And so it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm just going to throw myself on the queue since you, I have a question for you. And just
Okay.
since you identified that you live there in the current site, I just wanted to ask about how well supported you're feeling with the relocation program and how that's going from a local resident perspective.
I feel very extremely supported. Luma has done a great job and highly organized, and the way that they're like, I actually didn't realize I needed to fill out a form, and so I had one of the staff that works with is it Barbara Lawson, and she contacted me and she said, "Hey, you haven't filled out your form, right? And we want to ensure that you have a place, you know, moving forward. So fill out your form, get it into me." You know, so all the other stuff, even the all the other people that live in the building that you are non-Indigenous even, are being included and being supported in transitioning away from the building and then back to the building.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Appreciate hearing it. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Okay. Speaker number 7, Naresh Mann. Do we have Naresh on the line? Hi, Naresh. Naresh Mann?
Sorry, Chair. Speaker number 7 is not on the line.
Okay. Clerk, do we have any other speakers on the line?
Yes, we have a speaker number 8, Julian Mendati.
Sure, we'll let Julian explain the proper pronunciation of their name. Speaker number 8, Julian, please let us know your full name, whether you're a resident of Vancouver, and if you support this project or not. Thanks.
Hi, yeah, it's Julian Mendati, and I'm a resident of Vancouver. Yeah. Thank you for your time, Council. I'm calling in complete support of this application. I'm also a member of the Vancouver Area Neighbors Association. And overall, this looks like this building is incredible. I live in TOD distance from the building, and I walk by it on my day-to-day. And it looks like, looking at the design, I think it looks great. It would enhance the neighborhood. It's providing a bunch of social housing units for a community that's in need. It's also adding mixed use to it. It'll enhance the neighborhood and make it more lively. You have more people, you have more families. Like, what else could you want other than, you know, it being a little bit bigger so more people can call it their home. But in general, this is, a great application, and I hope it gets approved. Thanks.
Great. Thanks for calling in, Julian. All right. Clerk, do we have anybody else on the line?
No.
Okay. Thank you. This is then the final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. For the close of the speakers list, the phone number is posted on X and made available to the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. We're going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. Cue. get things started again. If the online members can turn on their cameras. And I think we have quorum. Shall we proceed?
3, 4, 5.
We have quorum? Yep. Excellent. All right. Okay. Clerk, do we have any additional speakers on the line?
Yes, Chair Fry, we did get a speaker on the line. I understand the name is Remy.
Online members. All right, speaker, please go ahead. Give us your full name and whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver, if you support this project or not.
Okay, my name is Remy Kretchen. I am a resident of Vancouver, and I do not support this project. And let me clarify why that is. To start off with, I've been in Vancouver for most of my adult life. I was raised in Alberta. My father is a residential school survivor, and so I do support social housing 100%. What I don't like about this building is simply its height. It doesn't fit the neighborhood plan. Everything in the neighborhood is in the 4 to 6 story height in this building, and I do not support this project. Sorry, my speaker got in the background there. It's just the height of the building. It's just monstrosity for the neighborhood. I don't think it fits into the neighborhood. Right on Francis Street, I live right on the next street on Francis Street. We have another building that's being redone right now that's also housing for Aboriginals, and it originally was a 4-story building that had a fire in it a number of years ago, and that's been rezoned to an 8-story building. I would support a smaller building, just not something so monstrous as this. That's really all the input I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, and thank you for calling in. Okay, Clerk, anybody else on the line?
Just do a last double check. And no.
All right, so seeing as there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing as there is little or no comment received after 12 p.m., I'm now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Do staff have any closing comments? Nope. Do council have any questions for staff? And I see that they do. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Thanks, Chair. I have one question just following up in response to the last speaker's comments, and I wonder if staff can provide some context around the height and other developments that are coming in the neighborhood and the height relative to what was permitted for market buildings or envisioned originally in sort of the 18-story tower. I wonder if we can just get a bit of perspective around that.
Sure. Thanks, Councillor, for your question. So the Grandview Woodland Community Plan does allow for 6 stories for market housing on this site and for the surrounding area. And it's the same under existing zoning. You can get 4 stories or 6 stories for social housing. But the housing policies of the plan do permit additional height and density for non-market housing projects, including those for Indigenous residents. So there is consideration under the plan for additional height for social housing projects specifically. There's also the Vancouver plan, which has some emerging directions coming, and we can anticipate heights of 12 to 18 stories in the area and along Hastings Streets, as it is a rapid transit corridor. Under the Grandview Woodland Community Plan, also the Hastings section between Clerk and Commercial also allows for 12 to 18 stories. So there is an emerging direction of the area for higher heights. For areas where only 6 stories are permitted under the plan, we wouldn't anticipate additional height unless it was a social housing project.
Okay, so if it was market, it would be lower, but
exactly.
So just to recap, just for everybody's understanding, if it was market, it would be lower, but the 18 is to accommodate the affordability requirements, and hence that's why we have a taller building than we would if it was a different type of tenure.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young. I don't see any other questions on the queue. So council will now make the decision on the application. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Joe, seconded by Councillor Klassen. Great. Is there any debate? And I see lots of people on the queue. Councillor Kirby-Young. Okay. Councillor Klassen.
Thank you, Chair. And this is our last public hearing and the last item on the agenda for 2023, and which happens to be my first year as an elected official. And so this decision has, I think, a little bit more resonance for me. And I just wanted to, first of all, thank staff for the presentation and the work that they've done to get this presentation to this place. I'm just going to reflect upon a few things. I think, first of all, I just want to express my support for the project. You know, when I hear people's comments and concerns about the heights of buildings, I often, my first reaction is to look at the street, because most of us, that's our relationship to built form. And when I look at the design the dialogue has done with their client, I realize that this is going to really add to the environment at that street level. It's going to be a beautiful building and something that will really complement this community. But I also just want to acknowledge how much I want to support Illuminated Society. Barbara, it was great to have you in here. I got to meet with a number of the members of your team, Marcel and Dave, recently, and I came away extremely impressed by the work that you're doing for the community and the urgency around the number of people on your waiting list that are looking for housing. So I think that this really just underlines the urgency of our mission here to try and make sure that we are able to build more housing. But I just also wanted just to mention Joost Bakker. Joost is an old friend, and I know that his stamp on the work that Dialogue does is felt in everything that they do. I know he's probably been in this chamber more times than he can count. But to think that his legacy will also be in this work, in the work of his team members. So I just wanted to kind of end the year and end our public meetings on that note, knowing that we've got really great project here and something that's going to really add to our community here. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Klassen. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I'm really happy to support this project today. And to Councillor Klassen's point, this is a great way to end the year. I mean, this is 190 social housing units. And a bonus, I mean, is the fact that it's being led by Luma, which is a respected partner of the city in terms of providing housing for our Indigenous neighbors. So I think that this project is going to be a huge asset, not just to the people who will be living there, but to the neighborhood. And that includes the design, which I think is beautiful and informed by Indigenous design principles, and also the commercial space that will be on the ground level and that will help activate this northern part of Commercial Drive, where there is a little bit less retail now, but there are some things there like York Theatre, etc. So I think that this will go a long way to activating that part of the street. So I'm really happy to hear as well that the developers working with our staff on the tenant relocation piece. That's always a concern when we're seeing rental buildings being demolished, just to ensure that those people will be given an opportunity to move into this beautiful new building. But happy to support this and happy to end the year with a great project. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Meisner. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I'll be really brief. My colleagues have said what I wanted to say as well, which is a really big thank you to Luma for the good work that they're doing on this project. It's excellent and also unsurprising to get to hear from current tenants of the building about the good support that they're being provided by Luma, and delighted to see this new building come in a neighborhood that I have lived and worked in for most of my adult life. I look forward to welcoming new neighbors and hope that we will continue to see a lot more Luma housing and other Indigenous housing across the city in the years to come. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Dominato.
Thank you, Chair, and echoing many of the same comments and sentiment of my colleagues is greatly appreciative of both the staff work and Luma's effort to get this to where it is today in terms of the rezoning. And I really appreciated the commentary around the need as well. I heard some criticism of the proposed height and density, the need and the fact that Indigenous persons are overrepresented in our homeless population. We just saw that with the recent count. And so there is a need there. And I really appreciated hearing from existing tenants and others about their experience with Luma Native housing as well. And so that was really positive. And I think one of the things that emerged from the questions asked today is the fact that this neighborhood is changing and anticipated to change, and the higher density and height is reflective of the fact that this is social housing. But we are anticipating similar type housing and heights in the area, and there is definitely space for new neighbors in this neighborhood, and will be welcomed. And so again, thank you for all who spoke today, and I'm very supportive of this project.
Councilor Zhou.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I will be very quick. Also, thanks staff for all the work behind this project, and then also thanks for all the applicants for submitting this amazing project for the neighborhood. Yeah, so I just want to.
Sorry. One sec, Councilor Zhou.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I just want to reflect what Barbara said in the speech. More than 4,000 people on the wait list. So this 200 units will provide much needed housing units for the neighborhood. It's a great addition to the community. Yeah, also want to reflect one of the speakers said this is not only about 191 units. This is about 191 families. And, I think knowing what the Indigenous community has been through in Canada, this is the least we can do. So yeah, we start 100% support this project. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilor Zhou. And I just put myself on the queue only also to thank the applicants, thank staff, thank everybody for the work on this. It is a really exciting project. And I think given the concerns around scale and stuff, I think this is a really good fit for the neighborhood, knowing the neighborhood as I do and many of us do. And I just want to highlight a couple of the pieces that haven't really been articulated here. And this things like the longhouse and the cedar treatment and the kind of really rooted in culture and cultural experience. And I think that that's a thoughtful, sensitive application to this design. And I just want to name it. I think it's going to be a fantastic project and really root families who could really benefit from that housing in culture, in ceremony, in community. And I think it's great. So thank you. And on that note, seeing no further questions from anyone, we've moved it, we've seconded it, we've debated it. Let's have a vote. And that passes with none in opposition. Thank you so much, everybody. And just to name, this is the last public hearing of the last one of the year. Wishing everybody a happy holidays and best wishes for the new year. What a fantastic project to end on. All we need now is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yeah, it was Klassen and Montague on the mic there. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.